Hello, friends. Host Eric here. Questo de Takiendo de Famiose de Piplioples. And I'm here to talk to you about the meat cheese. The topic today is best gifts. And the reason I've saved it this way, give me a second, I should have done this before, but I didn't. Once this thing is saved, I currently am on this laptop, right? It's a perfectly serviceable laptop, except for the fact that it has a grand total of count three, gigabytes of RAM. So that's a problem. I can't do shit with 3 gigabytes of RAM. I need 8 at least. And in the status quo, I have only three lowly gigabytes of RAM. So I'm really hobbled. For example, Chris, ENTP Chris, lady from Germany. I can't fix the audio on this right now. The reason I can't fix the audio is because I only have 3 gigabytes of RAM. So if I try to use the stereo mic setup I have with my compressor mics, it can't handle it. So anyway, I've been trying to figure out this computer problem now for a while, and I had a new one, and it broke right away. And so I've come up with a solution though. This is Kimberly's extremely crappy laptop she bought for like $70 on offer, and just only got 3 gigs of RAM. So yesterday, Spacey and I determined that, or Spacey determined for me that no, we've got it solved now. We've got it solved. I ordered 8 gigs of DDR2 RAM last night. It's going to be here tomorrow. So I'll just take the 3 gigs out of this, put the 8 gigs in, and I'll be good to go. It's been like freaking just extreme discomfort not being able to do normal things on the computer, being so like handicapped. I'm going to look forward very much to getting the computer issue resolved. But I feel good. I feel like a real new chapter has begun in my life. As I said, these chapter transition periods last a week or two. The chapter transition in this particular chapter of my life and of the channel as well occurred with the TWFE summer camp week, which ended in a big, which a lot of people are still upset about me about for no reason. Saying I didn't do shit. I don't know what everyone's upset about me for, but and the other thing I want to say is I have never and still have not written off Becky. Okay, it's like I've always encouraged her to come talk to me, but she's trying to scheme instead of deal with me directly, telling little stories and whatever, That's not going to work. Anyhow, this episode is called Best Gifts because there's a couple of gifts I was enjoying this morning or reflecting on the value of. First of all, hello, Ahmed. I want to talk. The first gift I was thinking about was this condenser mic that Brittany gave me. Now, Brittany one time came here uninvited. We were just, we're sitting around the house doing whatever. I don't remember exactly what happened. Thanks, Winston's mom. That's very kind of you. And all of a sudden, a knock on the door, and who's there? It's Brittany sitting on our porch. We had sent her, she'd bought a t-shirt, we mailed it to her, we put our return address on it, and she drove 16 hours down from Washington State, or 18 hours, or whatever it takes, and knocked on our door. So Kimberly sort of remembers that as a huge cautionary tale. We never put our return address on anything. Blah, blah, blah. But I remember it mostly as how I got this excellent microphone that is right here. That you're not hearing me through right now. You're hearing me through the microphones on this little camera because of my RAM issue. But Brittany gave me this great microphone. It's called Samson microphone. It's a condenser mic. And the reason it's so great is it's like a little mixer in and of itself. It's got a headphone out, and it's got a separate volume knob for the headphone out, and it's got, a line in and a mic volume knob. And you can switch from mono to stereo, and it can do all kinds of shit. It's like, I don't know how I was even managing before I had this mic, frankly. Well, I was going through this mixer, and it was a lot more complicated. I really needed this mic, and Brittany gave it to me as a present, and it was like I don't know, $150 mic or something, $200 mic, something like that. And boy, it has to be one of the best gifts I've ever received. It's almost enough. I was thinking this morning, I should just go online and say, okay, Brittany, you are an ENTP. I've gotten so much value out of this gift you gave me that I'm going to give you a gift and declare you an ENTP. But I don't think anybody would believe me. She might. I don't know. But it's Ahmed Assam lives in Egypt, I believe. So you've got to figure Egypt is like, it's probably like 8 p.m. in Egypt right now, I guess, something like that. It's like 12 hours maybe. So that was one gift I was reflecting on. Another gift I was reflecting on was Brittany is a sweetheart. She does have a lot of love to give. And she does know she's an ENTP. And I would call her a significant player in my channel's history on substantial levels. And the other thing is, when when Brittany's got your back, like in the sense that if you have Brittany as a fan of your channel, she will. She's not. It doesn't matter like what I say or do or what anybody else says or do. She will be the first one watching every video that goes up there and putting comments on it and stuff like that. And I appreciate that. And I value it. It's like, I feel a little bit like ashamed of myself perhaps for undervaluing that on occasion. So anyway, that was one gift I was thinking about. Another gift I was thinking about was Awkward ISFJ, formerly Awkward INFP's video host Eric's at Gym, which I was watching before I started this stream. It's like, I could do a little affirmation. I'll watch this video. It's like, fuck yeah, that's really nice. The lady took a lot of time just to make me feel good, I appreciate that. That's a nice gift. And so I can come back to you again later on and be like, feeling bad, Eric? You should watch that lady's video. She says all kinds of nice stuff about you. That's a nice gift, In general, I think a lot about objects, though, physical objects, and whether or not it's a good purchase, right? I buy a lot of physical objects, not compared to some people, for sure. I actually buy relatively few physical objects. So mostly I buy consumables, cigarettes, weed, fast food. That's basically it, That's mostly what I buy. I rarely buy objects. The last objects that I bought were an electric fly swatter, which I don't regret buying. That's fun. It's got D batteries in it. You push this button and you go around and you hit the fly with it. It goes, pop! It's like, zzz. The best gift to give someone would be teaching them a skill of some sort. Well, I would say also another gift that's really paid dividends in that area is I asked Jeremy one time to talk to me and basically share with me any wisdom he had on EQing specifically music and mastering those two elements of it, and the mixing and mastering process in general. And he talked to me for about maybe half an hour at most, and it had a substantial impact on the quality of my music production. So my music is much more well produced now in general than it was prior to that conversation with Jeremy. So that was an important gift that he gave, and it was a moment where I remembered how important it is for me to try to learn from other people and not just try to make up everything myself, not try to reinvent the wheel. That's what my dad was always accusing me of as a kid. There were two expressions I heard from my dad more than any other. Number one, Eric, for God's sake, why are you trying to reinvent the wheel? Or stop trying to reinvent the wheel. In other words, there's a way we do this that's already easy, and you're trying to make up your own way to do it. Which was a fair critique. I heard that all the time. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. The second one was, Eric, you're using the bigger hammer theory again. The bigger hammer theory is basically Eric's getting frustrated with something and he just wants to hit it until it stops fucking annoying him. Just because something's not working, Eric, doesn't mean the solution is a bigger hammer. Okay? I heard those two expressions all my fucking childhood, over and over again. Don't try to reinvent the wheel, and stop trying to use the bigger hammer theory. People judge the economy by how well the market is doing, but it really is consumer driven. Well, certainly the primary engine of economic activity is consumer spending. That's certainly true. If the earth is flat, why aren't the moon shadows? I don't know. Ancient Egyptian bacteria, alien zombies hid the shadows. Oh, that explains it. It usually ties back to Egypt in the olden days. Most things in the world do. That's where they built the walls at the edge of the flat earth, too. They built them in Egypt and then shipped them to the edge. Time is not linear, and understanding of quantum mechanics is applied to my INTJ card when I was typed. Wahaha. Time's linear-ish. Yeah, it's TE countervaluing, though, Fabelin, not ignoring. You're right that as a TI tool user, I tend to countervalue TE. Because I see TE as a heuristic or a shortcut, a way to avoid dealing with the real issue, which is always language-based, of course. Rock, paper, scissors, lizard spock, ruffle. Oh, that explains it. Spitaki might go everywhere. Spitaki is a good is a good past tense form for spit. Whatever, same thing. Yeah, sort of. I mean, it's interesting interaction with Spacey, ignoring TE and my ignoring NI and his demonstrative NI and my demonstrative TE. And I really try to use cognitive functions in our relationships here in the family. Now that we've got an adult son at home. Like yesterday, I had a family meeting where I tried to do a little bit of demonstrative TE and schedule a few things and talk about which projects we need to prioritize and which ones are less heuristic availability. Yeah, well, there's lots of problems with heuristics in general. There's one of the biggest problems with the way people think is there's an assumption that because we can articulate particular vectors in a system, we can predict outcomes within the system. And that's only the case for certain kinds of systems. And people don't make those distinctions. So that's basically the core problem with public policy in general. Aren't distinguishing between those systems about which they can accurately make predictions, or at least have probability on their side, versus those systems where their predictions are as good as shooting in the dark. I like your son, was his mom. All of a sudden, I like your son a lot. If he likes my music, I like your son a lot. But you know, it's like the fact is with the with the TI with the TE countervalued, I it's like a good example of using a TE heuristic is affording correctness to somebody because they're an expert. It's a quick way to avoid having to do all the thinking yourself. Well, I would like to know something about astrophysics, but I don't want to learn all about astrophysics. So, okay, I'll see what the astrophysicist says. That's a perfectly logical thing to do, right? I mean, it makes perfectly good sense. But for somebody with TI as a tool function, the instinct, the gut is to go, so what? He's an expert on astrophysics. That doesn't mean he's necessarily right. And if he's right about something objective, then I can parse through all the data myself and draw my own conclusions. And I will approach it probably adversarially. I'll be looking for things that I can say that he's wrong about. And that's just sort of the arrogance implicit in being a TI tool user. A lot of times it's sort of an appeal to authority. Look, an appeal to authority is actually a fallacy only when it's used like this. I'm presenting you a claim and substantiating it with a reason of some sort. For example, it's snowing outside right now. Cold white flakes are falling from the sky. And then my friend goes, snowing right now. The meteorologist said it wasn't going to snow today, and he's the expert. Now, in that kind of a situation, what's happening is the person is using the expertise of another party to avoid answering on point. To answer on point is to acknowledge the fact that white, cold things are falling from the sky. If you wanted to then negate that it's snow, you'd have to say, yes, white, cold things are falling from the sky, but those are particles of ice falling from the satellite launch that just went overhead. That's not actually snow. Something like that, you know? Are pizzas gifts? If you don't. Lack of FE gift. Buys a woman a maternity outfit as a gift before she's pregnant, then finding out she isn't pregnant after giving her the gift. Yeah, it's like a FE neutron bomb or something. I mean, who would go out like on a first date or something and say, "Here, I got you a present," and then give the girl her present and it's a maternity outfit, it's like a nursing bra. That would be a great gift for a first date. Hey, I got you a nursing bra. What are you trying to tell me? You want to have kids? No. That's for me. Okay, well, this is true, Winston's mom, and I'm glad you brought it up, and I'll address it a little bit. Winston's mom says, I've noticed in conversations on your channel that when someone is faced with a good rebuttal, they then attack or discuss the person, not the statement. That is a you really are an INTJ, aren't you, Winston's mom? There is a tendency to shift from TI to FE when you're having what should be a TI discussion. And the way that gets shifted is usually you just want to win. You are you just want to seem smart. You just want to it's a motivational critique, right? It's like you're just biased, for example. You're just biased is not an answer to anything, nor a rebuttal to anything, nor an argument of any sort. Yes, I'm biased. So are you. We are all biased. Now, what's your point? Just because a person has a bias, it doesn't mean they are exercising that bias and making a given decision, nor does it mean that the bias renders them wrong. They could be totally biased and making totally biased arguments, but also happen to be right, you know? So it's like, just because I really, really, really want my cat to eat cat food doesn't mean that I'm wrong that it does. Once I asked my captain's wife when she was due. She had the baby 6 months earlier. She never liked me. Oh, that's funny. La-li-lu-li. La-li-lu-li-lo. La-li-lu-li-lo. Expand dong. Would you like me to expand my dong? Is that a command? Expand dong. It's like for the penis military or something. It's one of the commands. Okay. There. Satisfied? Oh, there we go. Accessing my NE again. Expand Dong is an Android. I mean, like the brand of phone. He has a phone named Expand Dong. The best thing I have learned from personality typing is that people do think differently, and some do not like to think about thinking. I thought if I explain my rationale and thinking, I can make everything more practical and efficient and move on to the fun stuff. A lot of people they think that the talking part is just wasting time. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why. It just matters what we decide. The thing is, there's also trust issues. There are big trust issues. Like I had a good conversation with Kimberly last night, in which I said to her, "Okay, well, why? Now that we're talking and you're listening to me and you're letting me speak and you're not negating everything I say and we're actually conversing and not fighting. Why do you think that you fight with me so much more than with previous relationships?" And I'll get to your question, Maitland. I will. I'll address it. She said, "Well, I think it's what she said first was I think it's equality. I'm not used to having a relationship where you and I both need each other the same and blah blah blah." In other words, she's used to being in a power where she has leverage over the other person due to things like having more money or whatever. Now, the reality is, and I went outside and after I thought about it for a second, I went and talked to her. I said, I think what you really mean there, Kimberly, is you don't like the fact that there's inequality. Because the fact is, and I don't say this for any reason other than just to be straightforward about things. On an objective level, she needs me much more than I need her. I'm much more difficult to replace than she is in that regard. But the thing is, I have never would, and don't want to. I'm not interested at all in leveraging that for anything. I would never do that. And also, I want it that way. I don't want it the other way. So what she needs to do then is just basically trust. And this conversation we had last night was so powerful and effective because we actually talked about things without any feelings involved. Kind of, it was just like, well, this is reality. And the thing is, what I want from her is for her to be like, "You're my hero. I appreciate you." In that regard, the MiG towers might have cause to make fun of me. She's not used to offering trust like that. She's Oh, that's not true, Fateland, at all. How do you go about knocking down a strong TI logic tree if you know they're wrong? The answer to that question is the first thing I would do is ask if you're dealing with a strong TI user. I would say ask them turn the argument by doing this. Ask them, well, what are the best arguments against your position? And that's one of the best way to rip out the foundation from a TI user. Because if they're a TI tool user anyway, if they're an ENTP anyway, probably an INTP as well, they more highly prioritize their own objectivity and their own detachment than they do whatever it is they're arguing about. Explain why the risk they fear. Yes, darling. I'm in the middle of live streaming. What do you need? Um, I wonder if Kimberly does not put her oxygen mask on first. Does she realize how much alone time she really needs? Grumpy women either need more time alone or less time alone. Kimberly's not grumpy. Kimberly is scared. Um, because what I'm asking of her is, and her explanation for last night was the reason we fight so much is that she's sabotaging. She sees a good thing and she tends to self sabotage, has a history of doing that. And the reason for that is pretty straightforward, in my opinion, is that she's afraid. She's afraid if she really trusts that I might betray that trust, leave her, or otherwise, she will have given up her defensiveness, and then all of a sudden she'll be defenseless, and I'll use that reality against her because that's what happened in her life. But I would never do that. And I have, one of the reasons why I'm meant to be with Kimberly is because being with her has helped me to understand all kinds of shit, like my own feelings, where my boundaries are, what I actually need and want, and what makes me feel bad, and how the fact that something makes me feel bad is sufficient enough reason for me to say no. And it's like that. It took me 2.5 years pretty much to realize, okay, the reality is if Kimberly won't deal with me respectfully at all, and she won't affirm me, if she's just going to constantly negate me and oppose me, then I'm going to have to leave because otherwise I will feel too bad. Not because historically I've always said there's no newest drama. I'm talking about the resolution of shit. It's like Kimberly and I had a really good conversation last night. And we're getting along great. And I just don't see us fighting anymore because we're on the same page about what's going on here. When I asked her last night, why do you think we fight so much? She says, because she's sabotaging shit. And because basically she's scared because she doesn't have enough control. She has no leverage. She doesn't have, I'm not reliant on her in any sense. So, would a kid who is overly hyper and talks too much have out of control NE? All those kids with ADHD seem to have endless random ideas. Half the kids seem to have endless random ideas. I think the most ADHD types are ESTP and ENTP. ESTP is ADHD in a different way than ENTP, and you can tell the difference. Right? As a teacher, I can tell the difference, no problem. They're different. They're totally different expressions of the same thing, which is being an action in the mix. ENFPs and ESFPs are actually much less hyper and much more able to focus and all kinds of shit like that. So it seems to have to do with both NES or SE as a dominant function and not having FI. Because FI slows everything down. Or, it's like, I mean, I can't really explain it, but it doesn't parse out binarily. It's not low resolution. So it takes more attentional fortitude to deal with than TI does. Mama drama. I don't have any drama with my mama. Vainamoinen. More like, oh, he's type X. We probably will not get along well. At expand dong. Oh, you don't need to know anything about MBTI. We talk about all kinds of random shit around here. And if they are wrong, at that point, they'll either want to end the discussion. They win. If they're not, like, not all TI users are as objectively self-critical as I am, I've discovered. And not all ENTPs have as easy a time accepting legitimate critique as I do. And I don't know why that is. I guess it has to do with how I was raised. But and also being in debate. Being in debate makes you very detached because you're arguing. In one round, you're arguing, this affirmation is the most important thing that's ever happened, and we've got to affirm it or else we're all going to die. And in the next round, you're arguing, that affirmation is the most horrible thing imaginable. If we affirm, we're all going to die. So I mean, when you practice doing that all the time, arguing passionately for all sides of things, regardless of what you believe, then you learn how to say this is the one that's objectively stronger because I know it's stronger because I've argued both sides of it with my full effort without any concern about which side I believe in. I have pondered self-sabotaging. I don't think I've ever done anything like that. Instead, I will keep trying until I find the right tool persuasion to reach my goal. Interestingly, Winston's mom, you and I have a similar affect there from totally different angles. I certainly don't self-sabotage. In fact, the thing that's funny is there are all these terms that I heard when I was younger, and I always figured, well, I probably do a little bit of that. I probably do a little bit of that. I didn't get that those things were unhealthy things that people who had damage did. I just thought that, well, they're just things. Hey, dude, can you watch my latest video? It's a song about ice cream. Okay, can you link to it? What's most relevant, strongest argument of truth? Is that a question, or are you just saying that's what I'm looking for? Peter Dentist, I'm bouncing all over channels and listening to people and connecting stories in terms of pop culture references. The thing is, I wanted to change that thought. So, like, my point is basically I operate from a position that says, I know what's good and right and true and just, and I'm going to behave appropriately, and I'm going to insist that reality, to the extent that I can, match my perception of it, as the picture I paint of it. So it's like, in my picture of reality, Kimberly's a wonderful woman who treats me kindly and lovingly. And so my basic position is, therefore, reality must conform. Now, unlike you, Winston's mom, I don't try to find out the best way to get there. I just try to talk and talk and talk. Amber Thrasher, long time no see, and boy, arriving with thunder, the sound of which is welcome music to my ears. Pleasure to see you, Amber Thrasher. Ahmed Assam, are you volunteering to be in the type police? If you'd like, that would probably motivate me to make one. You gotta email me or something. Okay, so I know how to contact you or whatever. Amber, a tip of the metaphysical hat and a transubstantiation of an actual bone rib is coming your direction. There we go. And where's my torch? Torchy porch? Torchy torch? Where's my torchy porch? Oh, I can't transubstantiate this without the torchy porch. Hey, Brittany. I was just talking about you earlier in this video. You'll have to go back and watch it. I was talking about how much I appreciate your gift to me that I'm still using and valuing highly, this Samson microphone. Is it buffering? Sreti Chandran, have I not mentioned you yet? I have not mentioned Sreti Chandran. Okay, Amber, I know this is not kosher really, but I'm going to try to transubstantiate this with a regular lighter because I think my torch is on the front porch. I transubstantiate the. Oh, good. There, now back to being an extrovert intuitive. That's Marty, probably. Marty's kind of loud. Hey, Marty, stop that. What are you barking about? Quit your barking. Hey, 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 Marty. What are you barking about? Get back. Where's the back? Oh, I know what's happening. She's laying an egg right now. That's why. Tesla has a lighter? Wow, Eric needs a Tesla lighter. My husband would know if I sent a strange man a gift, especially if he's strange and liked Doors. Do I like Doors? I'm not sure I like the Doors. I might like Doors. I'm not sure. Why did host Eric's Chicken cross the road? To lay an egg. My farts sound like a Maud balk. So the strongest argument might have an upper hand. What type would be most likely one to throw about statements such as, in the next 5 years, no cars will have human drivers in them, while being completely unable to explain why it would be? Probably an NI user that's maybe like ISTP, ISFP, probably one of those two, I would guess. Bye, Shreddy Chandran. Truth might matter less if the populace is highly uneducated, due to many people being lazy to actually do research. Well, when truth is a tricky one, right? Because truth is something that we can afford to an argument for the sake of argument. It's a status we can afford. Now, there's another meaning to it, which basically says it's consistent with physical reality, but there's a third element to it, which is, are you really trying to be objective, engaged in dialectic? Are you trying to distinguish truth from falsehood in a way that disincludes your own subjective perceptions? BB Poison. I don't speak Cyrillic. Yeah, she's laying an egg. It keeps buffering at a point, but refreshing it worked for me, not buffering on my Chrome. I read that MBTI practitioners call the thing that's TE grip as an overemphasis of TE because of low self-esteem, low FI. Okay, well, I don't understand this whole in the grip of thing that people talk about, really. I don't quite get it. I've heard the one's fourth function, and I know that when I'm, quote, in the grip of my fourth function, it probably means I'm licking my wounds. Something bad's happened, I've lost a fight of some sort, or oh, he's writing in English using Cyrillic? Maybe I can read it then. Let me see. I have no idea what the fuck that says. I was wondering how we could connect this community of live streaming with people that I know would bring value and fun. Or have you given up in the fourth function group instead of lost a fight? I mean, I do sometimes. I mean, if I'm giving up, I've lost the fight. I see those things as the same thing. If I've given up, I've lost the fight. And if I've given up the field of battle, right? In other words, if I have to withdraw from the field of battle, then I've lost the fight. So, and I was wishing we could put a camera on the chicken and then the egg and watch her hatch and become a young chicken on our chat. Well, I do have a very up close video of Red laying an egg one time. So if you want to see what it looks like for an egg to come out of a chicken's butt, then you can find that video.
I had to get ready for work, and you said you'd help me bathe.
I'm sorry. I asked you what you needed,
and I said I need you to help me get a bath.
No, you didn't answer the question. Kimberly?
You know it's obvious. I have a client.
I forgot about it.
Then say that.
I didn't
come up with a bunch of other.
I didn't say shit. I said, "What do you need?" I'm live streaming. That's all the fuck I said.
Don't say the F word.
Then acknowledge that's all I said. I don't want you to fight me on it. That's all I said.
Well, you knew I had to get ready.
Kim, I forgot about it. You can accurately critique me for not prioritizing you enough in that circumstance. I will accept that critique. Oh yeah, female NTP. Brittany points out, hey, Amber Drasher came here today, so it was a worthwhile live stream.
What does that mean?
Well, she arrived with thunder as usual.
That's not the only reason why we like Amber Drasher.
I didn't say that, Kim. I'm saying that there's a benefit for me having been doing this instead of helping you with that thing because Amber Drescher came here today and arrived with thunder.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you, Amber. We don't have any roosters, so we cannot make any baby chickens right now. Get him, Kimberly. Fate wind. Supposed to be on my side. Science has stated the chicken came first. I don't know anything about which came first. Eric, you have a thorough understanding of typology. What other topics do you have a similarly deep understanding of? I have a similarly deep understanding of argumentation and debate rhetoric and also of grammar. I understand all of English grammar perfectly.
Oh,
and
God.
I do. Like, I can take any sentence and successfully diagram and tell you what every word is working as, which part of speech in a sentence. And it's a closed system. You can master grammar, right? I have students who have mastered it now too. But and I teach it better than anybody else. I also have my other understanding is about teaching, but that's not really an understanding. That's really a skill. Like I have a thorough understanding of teaching as a skill. It's not something I necessarily want to explain a lot, but I could. Also, public policy in general because of debate. So I mean, I'm pretty widely knowledgeable, but where I don't have a thorough understanding, I probably have questions, interesting questions.
Relationships.
I don't have a thorough understanding of relationships, but it's getting more thorough, and partially because I've expanded the range and depth of my relationship with my FI because of Kimberly, and my SI because of Kimberly, and those things are good.
I'm a drill sergeant.
I'm not a drill sergeant, Kim. Just because yesterday I had one meeting for the first time ever and suggested we try something new and try something else, and we got you guys' full agreement and input on everything, does not make me a drill sergeant. So,
yes, master.
When's your birthday? It's coming up pretty soon, huh?
Yes, my birthday's coming up soon.
I am so not domineering like that. In no way, shape, or form am I expecting you to be like, yes, master. Let's see. The strongest argument might have the upper hand. In what context? I'm not sure. You can leave your hat on, friend. You are an incredibly intelligent human being. Thank you, says to Winston's mom. The case and being certainly completely certain of their intuition being right. ISFP or ISTP is most likely because it's third slot NI with polar NE. Delilah, you gave her doors in an old video. I gave her doors? I don't know what that means. I gave her an actual physical door? I think ENFJ. Who is ENFJ? Oh, you think fate wins ENFJ? I don't think so. Maybe some feeler. INFJ?
Gave her doors.
That was epic. Thank you, host Eric. Bless you now. Thank you, Amber. Is it buffering for everyone or just me? Hello. Also, Nyek? That's how you say hello in Russian. Nyek. Sorry, I read that image. Oh, I read that thing already. I can't replay the specific part, though. Hello, and now I need a dozen factoids on Cyrillic. Yeah, I don't want it. Other languages like that are too hard for me. I was wondering how we could connect this community. I'm watching with people that I know would bring value and fun. I'm not sure how to do that. Read that already. I think giving up means compromise for harmony because it is a choice to not respond as an ego naturally desires. No, I mean, no, it's giving up because I don't have the energy to fight anymore, or I feel actually defeated, or whatever. I don't give up for harmony. I give up because I've lost the battle, or the battle's no longer serving me any good. I'm not trying to go for harmony necessarily. I'm going for, look, I do want to be perceived as reasonable and fair and just. Like, I don't want any outcome that doesn't result in that, but I'm not really going for harmony. I'm going for correctness in general. And yeah, I seek agreement, but only where we can reach agreement, not on TI grounds, not because of the sake of just agreeing. Says only the chicken can synthesize the egg. Wow, Kim sounds like my girlfriend. Kim,
Lucky you.
what is it like to have TI as a tertiary function? How do you use your TI? How do you use your logic?
I don't know. How do I use my logic?
Well, like one example is when you say, one way that you use your TI all the time is if I say to you, Kimberly, I don't like when you threw my food away before I was done eating it or something.
Mm-hmm.
You'll always find an equivalent. You'll go, well, you threw my potato away when I wasn't done eating the other day. That's an example of TI because you're saying I'm going to critique your critique by pointing out.
Why are you making it to be so negative?
I'm not done. I'm not done.
Okay,
I'm not
you
done.
don't need to continue.
But Kim, look, I have multiple. No, Kim, I do. I have multiple things to say, some of which are positive. You're not letting me work through the thing.
No, you don't need to go directly for the jugular.
No, Kim, listen to me. I didn't go directly for the jugular. I didn't. That's not the jugular. It's just a point I'm making.
You don't need to make that point.
Kimberly, I am speaking.
The question was for me.
Okay, fine.
So I would say when I'm working, my clients will come in and they will show me a picture of something that they want, but I know that logically I can't just give that to them. It's a process. So the way I would handle my logic would be to, I guess, logically understand that I cannot get a person from point A to point B unless I go through each step properly.
That's TE.
Oh, well, I don't know then, but you don't need to be saying something negative.
Okay, fine. Listen, I started with that, Kim, because when I start a comment, right, it might start off negative. You're not ever waiting for the but. Okay? There's a but always that's going to reframe the thing that appears negative first. But you have to wait and be patient and trust me. So what it's like is when, for example, I make some sort of mistake in the sense that I ask her, like, Kimmy, you just and then she can actually catch me on something. She'll go, but you said meow before, and that contradicts me, and so that's not fair what you just said. And she'll be very satisfied by that because it's her third function, and she's got me. You know, when she wins TI arguments with me, it is satisfying for her, for sure.
Very much so, because you are so determined that you're always right. So
not true.
Ask anybody you know.
Kimmy, listen. The reality is, I love giving you the wins when you were correct. And even if I don't love it, I always do when you're correct.
Love being right.
No, I don't, Kim. I need correctness to guide our path. That's the thing. That critique of me is something I've heard from a lot of people who are my enemies. The critique that I just want to be right.
Oh, okay. So everybody that says
no, I didn't say that. I did not say that.
Say what?
I did not say that everybody who is therefore my enemy. I didn't say that.
What'd you say?
I said a lot of people who have said that, who are my enemies, have said that. Now, what I'm suggesting to you at least is that I have an association with that kind of critique as coming from enemies. Not that that means you're my enemy, okay, but that you should be aware that I have that association in play, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's a critique I don't like because it's always unfair. It's saying, because I disagree with you, I'm going to critique your motivations. It doesn't matter whether you are right. What matters is that you want to be right, and therefore we can invalidate what you're saying. That's true. That's what that means.
The long, lengthy explanations.
Kimmy, I was just talking before you got out here about how you and I have made so much improvement. How we had a really good conversation last night, in which we actually talked honestly and fairly with each other about what was going on.
We did.
So I want that to Okay, so you see the challenges that the Kimberly and I still have, despite the fact that we are making substantial progress. And the fact is, Kimberly doesn't like to solve problems with Eric's explanations. She doesn't like that. But also the reality, I think she understands this, that my way of doing things actually solves problems, actually avoids fights, and her way actually causes fights. So because of that, if we're on the same page about that, we're going to be fine. It's like this is my kind of TE. It's a TI kind of TE where I go, all right, we agree about this, and then we move deductively from there and make progress into what kind of narratives we're working on. If once we're working together on our narratives, once we are all these positive things, and the behaviors and instances that deviate from them are exceptions, then we know our directionality. Why is your heart broken, Amber Drasher? Why are you sorry, Miss Kimberly? What did you say that made her sad?
I don't know.
Hyperfocus or obsessive focus is what I know as a grip. I mean, the thing is, being hyperfocused or obsessively focused on SI for me is normal if I've been traumatized in some way. So does that mean I'm in the grip? To me, it just means it's a natural recoverative stage. But of course, SI fits really nicely in with that. SI is very recovery kind of a thing.
Description of that, though, that is exactly how I feel a lot of times.
About which description of what?
Hyper obsession.
Oh, yeah. I guess maybe you're in the grip of extroverted intuition is the thing. Being in the grip of extroverted intuition means you're thinking about possibilities too much. You're worrying about this, you're worrying about that, you're fearing this, you're fearing that. If you were less in the grip of NE, you would be more spending time knowing the goodness of what's happening right now, and knowing that you can trust me to make sure everything is okay, and knowing that we're going to be fine, and knowing all this other shit that would cause you to naturally and honestly say positive things because you'd be knowing those experiences. Being in the grip of NE means thinking too much about what might go wrong.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. That is my life.
Do you feel cured now that I've explained it?
No.
Why not? I just explained it though. Words cure everything. Everybody needs to remember that.
To deal with Lorraine this morning.
I did not state that because that is how I view you, but it was a pertinent piece of data for their real life impromptu argument, which was, I don't know. I'm highly aware of that, and so are many people around the globe. I missed a lot of stuff, I guess. Okay. Sunset down. Sunset down. I'm so not used to being such an incredible fuck up, even though I seem to fuck up everything. I don't think you seem to fuck everything up at all. If all education is equal, which type would you have on stages with you as your debate partner? Probably INFJ. I mean, the other choice would be INTJ. The only reason I wouldn't choose INTP is because there'd be too much. It's not a good. You're not complementary skills. You're doubling up on skills too much.
Oh, are you just as smart as Mr. over here?
He's probably smarter than me by most definitions of the word. I mean, smart's a weird word, right? I assume most INTPs and even INFPs are smarter than I am in some sense because they're deliberation types. And obviously, the knowledge types are more knowledgeable in some sense than I am. I'm an action type. It so happens I'm an action type whose action is words and talking. So I'm going to sound smart probably if I was raised in an upper middle class environment where education was valued and prioritized, and being smart was valued and prioritized. And also, if I happen to do debate, in which is a competition about who can sound the smartest, basically.
Super dork.
If I understand correctly, even though even if NTPs don't know much about a topic, they can use the
Let's
TI to
talk
distill the
about
underlying premise of a given argument chain to deconstruct some argument based on principles of logic. Correct.
Also, if I'm an only child.
Correct and well explained.
Dork.
Absolutely correct and well explained. You did not do anything wrong. You gave Eric from the heart, which is a helping hand from cyberspace, and such hard work put into educating us. I wish that good and bad weren't so valued and they're trying to abolish it. Good and bad need to be valued strongly in society. We need it both in terms of morals and in terms of aesthetics. You know, it is absolutely the case that some things are bad and they should be scolded morally. And there is absolutely the case that some art is bad and it should be scolded aesthetically. I'm trying to break the code of Sunset Down. Ink, a music video. Watership Down was a terrific book. Kimberly might use her TI to fix things and problem solve. Kim, when you have to do those steps you're saying for the hairdressing, do you think them out in words or do you visualize what the steps are going to be or what?
Well, okay, so what I do is I think in my head that I know.
I can't move. I'm moving the mic closer to you. I'm not even showing you.
Oh, okay. So I just know that, like, when you're creating colors, it's like the color wheel. You have to add colors in to create one color. So I just know in my head what I need, how much of what I don't know. I instinctively know that. So am I thinking words or am I thinking
No, you're probably thinking in images.
images? Yeah.
And impressions and stuff.
Yeah, probably images.
And this was the challenging part of learning about hairdressing for you, right? Was with all the protocols,
Getting the connect.
The steps you have to take to do it this way, then this, then this.
Yeah, it was making the connect and understanding why each step does what it does. And the process just took me longer. And then when it finally one day just snapped, it was like that. It was like, boom, just all of a sudden.
Well, I think it's very interesting that you say that you had to understand why each step does what it does.
Yeah.
Now that suggests TE polar to me, right? Because you don't really need to understand why each step does what it does. You just need to understand, you just need to know the steps, the order of operation you do it, and this is the efficient way to get from point A to point B. You don't need to know any whys. But like me, you're a TI user, not a TE
But
user.
see, in hair you do.
Really?
Yeah, because if you add only one color wrong, you take the hair in a totally different direction. So I have to know why.
Okay. I mean, but in theory, somebody could learn you could learn, it's like this. If you want color X, you put A, B plus C, no?
No, because everybody comes with a different color to start with. So you have to figure out what this particular person starts with, what they have on there, and then think in your head, okay, if they have this and they want this, what do I need to add and why? Because to avoid other colors.
So what are the answers to the question why?
Because if you add not enough of the base color, the natural, like the one base color, then it will turn to orange or it will turn green.
What's this, Mom? I pitched that out there as a hypothetical. Okay, don't start attributing clear advocacies where I was simply making ideational hay. Okay, I don't have a clear advocacy on that yet. I'm highly aware of that, and so are many people. Use persuasion in a gentle way to tell her she does not look like a Kardashian, no matter how big her lips become. Who's trying to look like a Kardashian? Yes, TI can play the "Can you explain how" game all day, then get upset when you ask them to explain their solution to a problem. Right. Well, and that's something I've learned about TE Polar is when I can't come to Kimberly and just say, Kimberly, here's this problem. You need to fucking solve it, period. Right? Like, it's time for you to step up and bring some TE to the equation. I am doomed to failure if I do that. I need to provide both lots of reasons and lots of manliness, Blue Nowhere. Amber Drescher, I love you. Such nice, charming enthusiasm you have, Amber. Not trying to hit on you. I think you genuinely do.
So funny.
The reality is never what the client in a salon looks like. The stylist knows best and should be trusted but verified.
Yes.
Why do you say that, Eric? That's messed up, Eric. You have enemy PTSD or something? Why I say what? That I associate people saying you just want to be right with enemies? Well, because it's if somebody's using those kind of arguments, they're clearly not engaging with me directly on what I'm saying. They're obviously choosing to engage something else, like my motivational calculus or something. And to me, that means you're no longer engaged in dialectic. It means you're engaged in rhetorical adversaryhood. And I try not to actually be rhetorically adversarial with any of my people in my life. I just try to be productive in conversations. I want to have honest, actual conversations in which both parties are fair and want the best for the outcome and are vulnerable and
but
whatever.
some people just don't like other people.
What are you saying?
I'm just saying.
You just don't like me?
No. I'm saying that you have to understand your enemies are looking for just normal conversation from you. Sometimes people just don't like you. And they're not trying to be adversarial,
Well, I know that. I know. There's plenty of people who hate me. But I'm saying that I associate that behavior with people who hate me, not with people who like me.
Who hates you?
Lots of people. I have all kinds of haters.
Like that strong word, hate?
I mean, there are people who spend an amazing amount of time just directing, venomous comments at me. It's like, how much time are you spending trying to bust my chops? Just to play DA, I have to side with Kimberly on what? What are you siding with Kimberly on, Faye Wind? Communication is such an incredibly easy concept to reach positive agreements, yet it always seems seemingly unattainable, yet I continue to strive for it and continually fail. It's not unattainable. It's so easy. And I've always said two reasonable people should never disagree, persistent disagreement about anything for very long. Because if they're both looking to...
Whoever said I was reasonable?
Nobody. I didn't.
Yeah, it's surely not reasonable. Neither are my feelings or my emotions.
I don't want you to be reasonable. I want you to be caring. Being caring is different. Right? You're demonstrative FI.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm the least caring person on this planet.
You are demonstrative FI, Kim. You demonstrate...
You can't even... Don't even try to say that with his straight face.
You demonstrate love all the time. And except to me, you also demonstrate a lot of hate. So I'm saying, let's not demonstrate quite so much hate to me.
So
Let's demonstrate. Oh, Kimberly. J Banana Pants Lee.
Right. You got the whole farm in here. I gotta get ready for work.
All right, you gotta do that.
Can you tend to all these farm animals?
I don't know what to do with them, Kimberly.
I mean, what do you want to do with them, Kimberly?
Really, really, really want to make sure that they don't get out. Okay, guys?
Okay.
Okay. Yes, and Kimberly may be willing to allow your ways, right, the way she prefers. That's a human thing, possibly female. The way she prefers is not defensible, though, because the way she prefers involves making a bunch of ontological critiques about me. Every time I do something she doesn't like, she'll say words like, "You are bad in that way." And I'll say, okay, well, how much abusive language do I need to take, right? So the point is, it's not simply a disagreement. It's I'm being the one with the secure attachment style coming in fixing some bad behaviors that are associated with an insecure attachment style, as I should, and as to both of our benefit. Let's see. I'm way behind. Yeah.
Way behind. It's funny what you said earlier, though, because INFPs are probably the #1 type that can actually be very smart but seem pretty stupid.
I'm way behind.
Although, God, even as an INTP, I seem like a freaking dunce half the time to a lot of people who don't know me. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, well, because INTPs don't necessarily manage the other people's perceptions of them very
No,
well.
not at all. You do not care.
Eric, can you make an argument in favor of infidelity in relationships? I do think it's the correct thing to do in certain circumstances. If somebody finds themselves in a situation in which they're stuck and they can't figure out how to get themselves out of it, and they meet somebody and it's the right turns out to be the right person, it just gets them out of the thing, and they have to learn from doing it one time that they shouldn't do it that way. Then it's to be, it's like, it's human to make mistakes. I'm not looking to condemn people for infidelity always. And often infidelity will produce a good net outcome, such as the infidelity in my first marriage. The good net outcome was I got out of that fucking relationship. And I didn't think I was going to get out of it because I was so committed to the idea of marriage, So it turned out to be good on a utilitarian level. Lots of instances of infidelity end up having good utilitarian outcomes. And so in that regard, it's not something that I'd be condemned as like you're a horrible human being for cheating, but it's certainly, you have to understand that you either are going to, in the future, you have to take a position on the matter, and you have to be consistent with that position. That's all. Okay. I better get going. Got tons of shit to do. Okay, go ahead. Lubu Lonut. I find the Enneagram useful as a compass that tells me the direction my metaphysical would like me to take. I find it interesting and useful-ish, I guess. Now, being in a grip is just your brain desperately trying to figure out a solution to problems natural and needed. Greetings from Germany, like your channel. Thanks, Eileen Arva. What Enneagram type are you? At Winston's mom. Got to get shit done today. Independent going A, studying my addiction problem and headed to impatient rehab soon. Right on. I would think that your desire from arguments are accuracy. I just want. I'm genuinely working towards dialectic, which means I would like to use arguments in a way that is not designed to. It is non-adversarial. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to disagree with what you say there, but I'm not opposed to the idea of it, and maybe we can mutually, or maybe you can adjust it and make it a little bit different, and I can embrace it or something. I want things to fit together. I'm seeking NI, basically. I'm seeking not just deductive truths, which would be like, and this INTPs tend to be negationary in that regard. They're seeking deductive truths. So anything that doesn't withstand deductive scrutiny, they go negate, negate, negate. I'm seeking NI. So in that regard, I want synergistic truths that can't necessarily be all the way reduced. And so I'm much more open to like a variety of different kinds of dialectic, cooperative dialectic. Plus, it's consistent with my third slot FE. I like the mutuality of it. And I've done all the fucking crushing people I need to do in my life. I don't need to win any more debates. I've gotten to the pinnacle of my career already. It's like I've got school of the years. I've got national champions as a coach, and I didn't get that. I didn't reach any pinnacle like that as a debater myself. But it was only because my team didn't go to states. My team didn't go to nationals. So I qualified for states, but we didn't go. All right. I would think that your desire from arguments or accuracy. What type do you think Martin Scorsese is? I have no idea. Blue nowhere. It's sad you think you are smart because you can out-debate people. I do think I'm smart. I can out-debate people. I'm not sure why that's sad. Thank you. I believe I'm INTP. Oh, well, you're probably the smartest type. Or you are INTJ. INTJ and INTP have totally different. They come to the same thing from totally opposite directions. But they get so it's hard to compare them against each other. They're perfect as a team. You want to talk about an ideal debate team, full ideal debate team. Let's see, ENTP INFJ or INTP INTJ. Those would be the two strongest possible teams. Maybe ENTP INTJ or INTP INTJ, but
yeah, I was thinking that if you get the introvert and the extrovert in there too, INTP and ENTJ would be a pretty sick combo, not just for debate, but for anything.
INTP ENTJ?
Yeah.
Well, I think INTJ is better for debate because, first of all, INTJs are much better debaters than ENTJs in general.
That's true, as long as it's a purely linguistic arena.
Yeah, but second of all, INTJ NI is much more comfortable to an INTP than ENTJ NI because
Yeah.
INTPs both want to do the NI pudding themselves, and they countervalue it when other people do it. So they're going to constantly butt heads with the ENTJ. Let's see. I'm listening to an audiobook that says extroverts are action-oriented and introverts are idea-oriented. That's not true. It's not possible to have a wing that isn't adjacent to your core type. Okay. INTP are great type, smart, stoic, can talk about anything, really like Skittles and Dungeons and Dragons. It's a great description of them. Heart Kimberly. I heart Kimberly too. I should not have insulted you like that. I'm sorry. You argue in good faith at least. I don't think you really insulted me. I just don't understand why it was sad. You're weird, Eric. That's true. Shreddy Chandran, why? I am 60 in a good place and know who I am. I've taken numerous steps to different sites, but could learn what the question is when we take it. Let people have the wings they want, you bird hater. Sinjin. Sinjin arrives to give the what for to Shreddy Chandran. Thank you, says Eileen Arba. I want wings, but would settle for a jetpack. Maybe she's thinking in amounts of measurements, which are numbers or ratios. Who? I don't know what you mean. Hey, Sinjin, says Peter Gentis. Blue Nowhere. Female ENTP, if you're an ESP, you're the best actor I've ever met because nothing spells ESFP about you. Well, I'm sure Brittany will be very happy to hear that. Internal compass of harmony with colors. She thinks in colors and layers. Eric, do you know what type Jordan Peterson is? I think he's an ENTJ. Shreddy Chandran, no comment. Amber, sometimes I feel that host Eric is one of my favorite YouTube channels. I don't think trolls are wreaking havoc here. I feel perfectly capable of moderating myself. It's not like we have if it gets bigger and I have too many things to pay attention to. But it's like, I don't know, do we have that many trolls? Why do I feel the presence of a master? Suddenly I am a grasshopper again. Does Sinjin's arrival convert you into a grasshopper? Thinking in images is great till you can't draw, so you describe the image, which never does you justice, especially when it comes to people. I can't draw for shit. I can't think in images for shit at all. I can't visualize anything. I'm really bad at it. MBTI is nature and Big Five is nurture. No, I don't think so at all, Eileen. I think that Big Five is an attempt to assign attributes to people based on certain things that link usually to cognitive function types. Like, for example, I'm going to get low conscientiousness in Big Five because I'm an ENTP. The thing I don't like about Big Five is there's necessarily a normative component to it. It's saying basically, and therefore you need to improve in this area. We need conscientiousness. You should have low neuroticism, high conscientiousness, high openness, high agreeableness. They're clearly normative. Fuck MC Hammer. T.I. Hammer is back. Word. So Enneagram is a dynamic system over static one, for example, on the 6 today and 2 a few days later. No, I don't think it really works like that. But
MC Hammer was an ENTP.
But it's a lot less rigorous in understanding of things. You can't really apply TI scrutiny to it. It's a good metaphor or good something. I don't know. Okay. Jordan Peterson is an ENTJ, setting PTSD enemy. That's absolutely untrue. Susie, I mean, I can't imagine anything less true than that. I totally engage her directly on the stuff that she says. And I try all sorts of different angles to get her to work with me. See, I was engaging what she's saying. Listen, I said, look, what you say here, I normally associate with something enemies do because it's non-responsive and it's disrespectful. So I get that you're not an enemy. You're not trying to disrespect me. You don't want to disrespect me. But I'm telling you, this is part of the way that we have conflicts. Is I want you to treat me in a way that I view as respectful, not in a way that you view as respectful. And this is an FI thing. This isn't about me saying, me not being responsive to your critique. This is me saying, hey, I don't like the way this makes me feel. It's an FI thing. So, so absolutely, Susie, you're absolutely wrong. And you have a tendency, I've noticed in the past, to jump to conclusions about things in between me and Kimberly that may be, I'm just hypothesizing here, maybe things you're pulling from your own experience with previous relationships that do not apply at all. I agree. Jordan Peterson has an NT look that dinged my radar. He's a bit forceful. He's too soft spoke for an ENTJ, but that could be learned. I say ENTJ. I agree with Winston's non-performance behavior. An important aspect of nurture is looking at direct exposure of environment and indirect exposure of environment, such as the environmental influences had on ancestral DNA. What? So fucking what, Eric? What do you mean? Susie, what's up? What's with that? Look, I'm telling you, I'm trying to make things work with Kimberly with language. Means I'm trying to get her to use language in a way that is meaningful to me, that is effective, that allows me to talk, and be heard. I need to be heard too. It's not just Kimberly that needs to be heard. This is a reality. Heretofore, it's not been one that's been given a lot of credit by anybody, it seems like. Becky is the first person who understood what was going on. And she said, look, the problem here is you're not letting Eric use his tool function. You're not respecting him for who he is at all. He is somebody who solves problems with language. If you won't let him do that, you do not value him. You're not interested in being in a relationship with him. You're being interested in being in a relationship with somebody else. And that's absolutely correct. There's no disputing it. There's no other perspective that we need to consider or anything like that. I'm telling you the truth about shit. Period. This thing is falling down like crazy. And the thing is, Kimberly's very good has been historically very good at misrepresenting things to other people. So, it's a sensitive issue for me because it's like I've been thrown under the bus by her a lot of times in ways that are totally unfair and unreasonable. So, that's the reality of it. And I've not done the equivalent to her at all. Haters are just confused future fans. Because look at this thing I discovered. You all underestimate ENTJ FE role in the TI of academically trained TE. No, I agree with you, Sinjin. I always thought you were like 19 or something. No, Sinjin's not 19. Kimberly is the best, regardless of what you try to indicate, Eric. I'm not trying to indicate anything to the contrary. I'm trying to indicate she is the best. And because she's the best, she treats me lovingly instead of angrily. She doesn't negate me continually. When she does disagree, it's not out of opposition. In other words, she's not generally opposing everything I'm saying. She has a reason to disagree with something. That she is comfortable knowing that I am open to hearing her critiques. And I'm open to hearing her concerns and want to incorporate. I mean, we had a meeting yesterday, as I mentioned before, and it was like I couldn't have been more. It couldn't have been more like attentive to everything good, right? It's like I wasn't trying to exclude Kimberly from any sort of decision-making process. I was trying to include her. But even though I was trying to include her, her reaction was one of, you're trying to exclude me. In other words, you're trying to not care what I want. Like I proposed a schedule, and she started attacking the way that that one of the days on the schedule was. And, it's like, well, what do you think then, Kim? Well, I want to choose my own schedule. Well, then fucking say something. Give me a day or something. It's like this oppositional thing that is born of previous relationships or previous bad experiences or whatever. It's totally unnecessary, right? When we're sitting there and have a conversation, we can negotiate, make sure my goal is for her to be happy. But I can't be constantly trying to get back to zero. In other words, if she's constantly telling me I'm such a horrible person, how everything I do annoys her, and et cetera, then the best I can do is get back to zero, which is get back to neutral in her eyes. That will never work in a relationship with me because I don't have clear FI understandings of things. I only have statuses. And she's giving me a bunch of negative statuses. I don't want to have to carry those around with me. But I do because until she's willing to talk about it and resolve it, take it back or reframe it or something, I carry it. It's with me. She thinks I am a loser in this area. So she needs to be able to talk to me. And that's the reality. And so, and for people who get in, who chime in with thoughts like, oh, Eric's doing something wrong, they just don't get the reality here. No, Eric's doing everything right, and things are getting a lot better consequence. And this is proof that Eric's way is right. Female and feed, yes, nature versus nursery. I see these hummingbirds. They are bossy and noisy ESTPs and chase away our rubies. Communication with those closest to us is like trying to fit a star inside of a circle. It doesn't work. Well, I disagree with you. And it worked that way fine in my house when I was growing up. We all communicated with each other beautifully. Everybody was looking, nobody was ever trying to bust anybody's chops or anything. We were trying to be gentle with each other, my parents and me. It was just the three of us. But, you know, and when we had disagreements, we resolved them by talking it out. And at the end, everybody said, I'm sorry. And we hugged and made up. And we took turns agreeing, like, you know what, I was wrong when I did this. And my mom would say, well, and I was wrong when I did this. The way normal fucking healthy people do shit. And if people don't do it that way, there's something wrong with the way they're doing things. Period. Just because you heard an enemy use the same words does not make words be. I didn't say that. See, introverted thinker, you're not being a very good introverted thinker right now. Obviously, I choose my words carefully for a reason. The reason I didn't say that, nor anything of the sort, is so I wouldn't be subject to those critiques. I don't judge people. I take the things I can use for learning, so I never get triggered by Peterson. I don't have to believe everything he says. I don't get triggered by him either. I mean, occasionally I'll get a little irritated by some of his bullshit, but I'm not afraid to try it out too. Like my meeting yesterday was basically like, okay, let's try a little Jordan Peterson, get your shit together, clean your room kind of stuff. And you know, but I also say, well, let's just try it for a little bit, like a week or something. I don't want to go crazy. Is ESFP the inverse? Sound smart but dumb. Inverse of what? I don't think ESFP sounds smart. What is that voice speaking? It freaks me out for a bit. Well, I don't know. Mama saved me. Brittany, are you a Native American? You cheated on your wives, Eric? No, I didn't. I never cheated on any wife. My first wife cheated on me. I did cheat on a girlfriend when I was 18 years old. And I regretted it, and I never cheated again. Never even dreamed of it. I didn't understand the impact of it at FI level. I can't really blame myself because I had no fucking clue. Thank you, beautiful friend. I hope you enjoy the rest of your glorious day. You are an incredible force of pure passion and positivity. Ahmed Assam. A TE Dom seems less likely to start his crusade based off apocalyptic visions and dreams. Yeah. Brittany has a cute video where she makes smoothies with her friend Jody, the ISFJ. The video has good content. She smiles the whole time. Wow. Yep, we're seeing NI. We're seeking NI. Cool. Ahmed Assam, I long to join the resistance, but I know my history. This is not a time in our history when taking a stand. When taking a stand, not a side, may matter. By the way, Eric, I think Albert Einstein with ENTP, not INTP, based on watching him speak and reading his own words. I've never really looked into it very carefully.
I think Einstein's an ENFP, but he's definitely an EDOM.
Okay. Why would a sub arrive here and put forth ugly personal questions that add nothing but negativity? I don't know. Who's doing that? Did somebody do that? So, but his TI wasn't strong enough from what I've observed, and I've observed a whole lot of it looks NETI, not TI-NE. Okay, buy it.
He looks NETE.
You think he might be, well, then be NEFI.
Well, no, NETE.
But, I mean, but he'd be NEFI.
Well, he'd have FI, but
it would be second, though.
The combination of NE and TE is like the best two extroverted access you can possibly have for something like theoretical physics, if you ask me.
Okay. Well, then maybe, and look, Fate Win says BS Einstein was super introverted, especially as a child. That would make him possibly an ENFP. Because ENFPs are not as extroverted as ENTPs.
Right.
Has anyone noticed there is a character online who trolls the personality typing community? I know his channel, but he shits up other channels and networks. I don't know who it might be, but people try to troll me. They end up getting their freaking ass handed to them usually. Don't worry, we'll make resistance of our own. If you can provide me a good reason why I should change my thought of what I'm doing, then I'll consider it. TE Polar 1 TI points of validity. I mean, that's just TI in general. If you can provide me a good reason why I should change my thought of what I'm doing, then I'll consider it. That's TI in a nutshell. Most of the stuff he wrote and spoke sounded nothing like any IHP I know. Okay, but like I said, I haven't really looked into it much, so I'll certainly take your word for it. I was just sort of basing it on the fact that it's philosophy driven, not empirics driven. That's why it's not. I don't see it as NITE, for example, like INTJ, or TENI like ENTJ. Okay. What is good for one is not good for the many. Life of introversion means nothing, as I'm the most introverted person I've ever known, and I'm an extrovert. Also, anyone who's highly intelligent will be pretty introverted. Eric's response: I do think I'm smart, and I don't know why that is sad. Yeah, like Einstein. Sir Stan of the Life of Introversion, I agree. So Stan, the thing is, I was talking about introversion and extroversion with Spacey the other day, and he's, because one thing that was being floated by Becky and Shane was that I was an ISFJ. And so I mentioned that to Spacey, and he said, but it's obvious you're not an introvert. You're obviously an extrovert. And I said, oh, yeah, that's some good demonstrative NI there. I was thinking all the different ways I might, in theory, respond to it if I wanted to. And he just pointed out the obvious NI thing. You're not an introvert. But the reality is, the way I am here on this channel when I'm talking is when I'm in the mood to engage with other people. As Spacey would attest, I'm sure there's plenty of times when I'm working on something and I'm just working by myself and I don't really want anybody around or do anything with me, So I guess you could say that would be an introverted time period. I see it as a work period. It's like when I'm working on something specific and that thing has my full attention, then that thing has my full attention and not other people. That doesn't make me introverted. It makes me focused.
Well, yeah, you obviously, how extroverted can you be when there's nobody around you to interact with?
Well, I'm saying
it's like, but I can watch you being extroverted even when you're not talking to people, even when you're working on your project. I mean, I can.
Really? What does that look like?
You just do shit. I'm the kind of guy who I'm going to sit there just like, okay, how am I going to do this? Right?
Or is I just
and then I might start doing something and be like, no. Right? You're just like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do
that. Yeah. Like, and then, I fucked it up again. Where's the sledgehammer?
Right. It's just.
Yeah. So, the colloquial meanings of introverted and extroverted, I think, will very much be situation dependent and mood dependent. On Tuesday from 2 to 4, I was in a very introverted mood. It's a reasonable thing to say. Can you be typed if you are diagnosed with borderline personality disorder? Sure. My friend Liz, she has borderline personality disorder, and she's obviously an INFP. Just not any sort of getting away from that. Kimberly doesn't have borderline personality disorder, but she does have some attachment disorder issues, or history. So, and she's obviously an ISFJ, and I can see the way in which there's equivalencies between the two attachment disorders behavior displays, but it doesn't muddy the fact that one's an ISFJ and one's an INFP. Well, my husband is an ESTP and highly intelligent. I think my daughter might have leaned toward ESTP also. ESTPs are very smart. And a lot of times the very smart ESTPs will be mistyped as ENTPs.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your answer, Eileen says. You're welcome, Eileen, says Eric. How social could you actually be, and how much will people enjoy to be around you if your IQ gap is, say, 40 above your peers? You'll get tired of watering down your thoughts. Well, the thing is, that's assuming you're doing work on a TI level. The fact is, most of the work that I do that I'm proud of and care about is not TI work. It's any work, any FE work. It's music, or it's fiction or something. It's like I care more about poems that I write than most videos that I make. The ceilings in here are not tall. It's just slightly, maybe 7 feet, maybe 8 feet. And the thing is, I don't feel like I have to water down my thoughts. I know that my audience can mostly handle me just talking like I normally talk. I do talk rather fancy normally. Like I do make an effort to nowadays to use smaller words sometimes instead of bigger words. And I make an effort to, but that's not because I'm trying to dumb things down. It's because I'm trying to get more NI resonance. I don't see it as a sacrifice. I see it as an improvement.
Right. I think I went through a similar process, but way earlier in life, where I used to sound really, really nerdy when I talk to people. And sometimes it makes people think you're arrogant or something. I don't know. They don't like it.
Yeah, right. It's got a good purposes and bad purposes. When I was younger, I used the good parts of sounding smart to good effect.
Right.
And then I didn't understand when to turn it off. And, I am way behind on comments. Stand to join the military, one must have an IQ of 83. It's not 20%. It's like 12% of people or some 10% of people have an IQ lower than 83. Kim, Susie, that's not the case. The only way that anybody could ever say, as per usual, I'm making it about the other person, is that they ignore all the things that I acknowledge and don't pay attention to the fact that there's no equivalency on the other side. It's the only way anybody could do that. Susie, that's not me. You're wrong about that. You're just attacking me for no reason. Geez, I really am far behind. God damn it, I need to hurry up. Jesus Christ, I'm far behind. All right, where it matters. It's not like our cognitive level is under some large regulation. We're too high, not allowed to speak now, or too low, not allowed to join. I live far away from areas with wolves. One cure for trolls is ignoring them. That's true. The camera's tilting cinematic. I'm incapable of being able to make host Eric do anything or feel anything they don't want to. It's called free will. Right, but look, the thing is, we do have free will, but we also get ourselves into circumstances in which there are reasonable expectations to be made by both parties, and there's contractual arrangements of sorts. So we need to respect the fact that we make decisions for more than just this instant, and also respect the fact that we have to retain some flexibility and adaptability in the moment over the long term. The joys of being online when you're 9G. I get to watch pretty TV people. I'm not a pretty TV person.
I am.
Yes, the camera should be on its face. It doesn't really much happen. I'm sure.
I'm a pretty TV person.
Yeah. This is my face double, as they call it in acting. When you don't have a pretty face, you get a face double. White on the chessboard. I always wanted to learn to play good chess. Hello. Maybe try to understand what Jordan Peterson said then, and maybe you can show that you know what you're saying or have better luck with it. He probably meant bell curve. Mika Ferret is curled up at my feet chewing on an FDR chew stick. Franklin Delano Roosevelt made chew sticks. Michael Thompson, hello and welcome to Host Eric's chat. Yes, hello, Michael Thompson. Okay, better stop there, Eric. It's time to stop. It's time to stop what? Life, like all things in life, is a balance, a give and take for maximum efficiency. Unless you can find the perfect fit and be made use of, after a certain point, high IQ will hurt you. I guess so. I mean, it's like I don't really put a lot of weight in IQ because what is it actually measuring?
Well,
Most
the
people,
point is IQ or not. If you get to a certain level of intelligence, right, and you can't have meaningful interaction with other people,
then you aren't
and
trying. If you're really that smart, you could
Right.
try to and
You
successfully
could.
manage that system.
but more importantly, once you get to a certain level of intelligence, it seems to me that your psychological stability is decreasing. You become more susceptible to things like schizophrenia and shit like that. You can't really stabilize,
Hmm.
but I could be wrong about that.
In Germany, tests only go to 150. No one gets IQ over that. I wish I could take a test in the US. You talk to C.S. Joseph for how social engineering ISFJ. See how well it works. I'm not trying to socially engineer her. I'm trying to have a good, healthy relationship in which I am spoken to as somebody that she likes and respects, and I speak to her in the same fashion. That she speaks about me in that fashion, and I speak about her in that fashion. That we respect the power of words. That she trusts that when I want to talk to her about something, it's not to make her feel bad or bust her chops or anything. It's because I need to be heard too. That's it. I took an online test for fun. Yeah, well, those tests, you're right. You'll be alone, you'll not relate, you'll be misunderstood, you'll be prone to existentialism, you'll not get recognized for exceptional intellect. I mean, 95% chance you won't. For the majority of the time, it takes one to spot and understand one, you'll be thought of as nothing much. Max Planck, the greatest theoretical physicist, spotted Albert Einstein from a position of power, made use of Albert. Otherwise, Albert would have been arguably remained unknown. He was producing, working in his field, just nobody thought anything of him. Have you considered how Terry Kimberly uses arguments to deflect? My ESP uses accuracy to deflect, put me on the defensive. It works, or it did work until I began listening better. Right, well, I know she's using it to deflect. What I'm saying is, you doesn't need to defend yourself against me. I'm not trying to attack her. Period. I'm actually looking for actual solutions, and I want to be in a healthier, happier relationship in which she's happier, I'm happier, and we both treat each other kindly. It's that simple. Eric, who would social engineering the other first? You being socially engineering C.S. Joseph first, or you socially engineering him? I mean,
He's not smart enough to socially engineer anybody except like teenagers.
yeah, he has said on occasions before that I'm an ESTP who needs to hit the bong to access his extroverted intuition. Which function is he clearly not using there at all in making that argument? Guesses? It's TI. It doesn't hold any water at all. If you think about it, it all makes no sense.
I don't even know if he actually thinks that.
He
He's
said
just
it.
talking shit.
Admiral Halsey notified me he had to get a berth or he couldn't get to seal had another look, and I had a cup of tea and butter pie. The butter wouldn't melt, so I put it on the pie hand across. What? Are you okay? Yes, martial arts. C.S. Joseph responds to host Eric like a young bull who wants to challenge leader. It's good information, and it was one of my first channels to be very young. He's not that young. He's just not very TI. It was only after Max Planck spotted and recognized Albert's words. Nobody thought anything of it, nothing silent, but it took one to recognize one, and one who was already in the position of power. Stuff's getting creepy in here. Martial arts is one of those people who likes to try to cast certain kind of narrative spells, negative narrative spells and stuff. It's a pretty tough environment to come in and try to troll or manage the narrative. Cerebral spacey or skeptical spacey. Host Eric is not an INTP, then the type does not exist. The mythical unicorn tells Santa that he does not exist either. By the way, Eric, why does CS Joseph say you're not ENTP now? I was shocked when he said I'm not an ENTP.
I'm not. I mean,
because I said he wasn't, I guess.
Obviously, both of them think the other one isn't one.
One of us is right.
Yeah, one of them is right.
Planck made many contributions to theoretical physics, but his fame as a physicist rests primarily on his role as the originator of quantum theory, which revolutionized humanized understanding of atomic subatomic processes. The MPS now includes 83 institutions, yada yada. Just petty fighting, hand slapping fighting. Stan, what I noticed most on technical community models is that we need to understand what model they use. The classic MBTI model is what I learned first. CSGS always flips the type that I see. For us, it's just that I feel like it's more just CSGS of being contrarian to discredit. Where is it? To discredit Eric like Eric wants to discredit C.S. Joseph too. I mean, I don't necessarily want to discredit him. I just can't. I can't really say anything about what he says without discrediting it or lying. Fancy Posh and Ponce. Sinjin says C.S. Joseph can't even type himself. I agree. Fancy Posh and Ponce. Yes, I'm learning a certain language styles can seem arrogant or pretentious. You're the real deal. Congrats, Eric. Thanks, martial arts. C.S. Joseph still thinks he's in there in EHP. No, Stan, I didn't read that in Husserl. He may push back, but that is masculinity. I listened to him for months before awkwardly engaging. Husserl is not ego driven by C.S. Joseph's young challenge. I'm not sure you can say C.S. Joseph isn't. He just might be one of them very intelligent. You'd be surprised the difference in intellect makes on your personality. Well, the problem here, Stan, is not that he's not intelligent, it's that he's working in an area that requires introverted thinking, and he doesn't have it anywhere high for sure. And he's not using it. So he's using extroverted thinking and introverted intuition to position shit that needs to be understood through introverted thinking, introverted intuition, and extroverted intuition. He has almost no extroverted intuition, even though it's demonstrative. When you see him demonstrating his extroverted intuition, it's just crap. It's like bad jokes and freaking nonsense. Never heard anyone categorizing their talking as smart and dumb. Not smart and dumb, smart and smarter. Hello, pretty TV person, and his shirt looks purple today. The voice coming from the ball has appeared once again. Purple people eater. I thought I never met an IHP in real life ever while I was working with one. What and how? Well, standards as we hold our own type to the height of standards. Yeah, well, Susie read something the other day from a book about sociologics that says the first thing it says about ENTPs is they hold their companions and themselves to extremely high standards. Maybe I don't think C.S. Joseph is unintelligent. I'm sure he's intelligent in lots of areas and ways. He probably has good effectiveness in some regard, but that's not the same thing as, I mean, but it's like being a great baseball player doesn't mean you can bring those same skills and try to hit a basketball and think you're doing something. And he's out on a basketball court trying to hit it with a baseball bat. The ENTP has become my favorite creative personality. If I was dating or seeking a relationship with a younger point in life, I would have found one and made sure they an ISFJ mother. Considering that your high isn't the same as mine, right? There are levels, and so you get to the point where if you someone less than you, grossly less, you automatically might want to write them off. I mean, that's possible, but the thing is, I generally don't write people off for lack of intelligence. I write people off for like lack of depth, maybe lack of soul.
No, it's when people lack intelligence and then try to act as if they are, as if they do know what they're talking about, and then even worse, try to tell you that they're smarter than you or they know more than you. That's when I judge people.
We're prone to dismissing people of our own type being our own type for whatever high standard reasons. I don't think so. I mean, I think that might be the case with when you're younger. If you're feeling a lot of competition in a given social niche to be like the ENTP, then that's likely to be the case or something. But I feel at this point in my life that I'm not prone to dismissing people regardless. I generally say, okay, well, we all make mistakes. You know, I've lived my life needing a very failure tolerant environment. So I just always sort of afford people the benefit of the doubt that that they'll deal with me fairly and honestly if I deal with them fairly and honestly. You know, maybe stop repeating yourself all the time in regards to sour relationship. I mean, it might help somewhat to repeat myself less often to Kimberly. But the reason I'm repeating myself is because I'm not feeling as though I'm getting heard. And that's what I've explained to her, that what matters is whether I feel as though I'm being heard, not whether she can argue that I'm being heard. I love you. This is why I need to help you, Eric. Oh, okay. Thanks, martial arts. You're on the best way into Doom. Doom, huh? That's pretty good. Doom. C.S. Joseph is Alex Jones to politics. He's intelligent but just wrong. Maybe see the reasons why Eric is not always just trolling. Sometimes your opponent's too strong. Sure they are. I understand that. You need a slap to get out of there. No, I don't. You just need to tell me. You're right. I'll agree with you. Is monologue typical for INTP? I have a tendency to talk to think better, not because I really want to speak, so I can sort things out better. I think,
Yeah, we tend to have to start talking, and then as we talk, or at least for me, as I talk, the blanks start to get filled in, and then I have more to say.
but the thing is,
It kind of builds.
INTPs are deliberator and then actor. So they want a universe in which they've thought the whole thing out, and then they take the action, which is talking. Now, life doesn't afford them many opportunities to think the whole thing out and then have the floor so they can speak their whole thought with just as long as they want to explain all the points and then withdraw, But that's what they would prefer to do because they're deliberator action types, not interface types. Interface is at the bottom of their conscious stack, so they prefer to avoid interface in general. I mean, they enjoy it; they get a lot of satisfaction from it, but they don't want to. They don't want to intentionally be focusing on the interfacing aspects. We can only control our own ideas, opinions, and decisions. I have my doubts about decisions. Right. It's absolutely true that you can only control yourself. And that to blame somebody else for your own bad behavior is always a problem. And I've been guilty of that for sure. It's like, I have to acknowledge that when I react badly to Kimberly's behavior, it is my ownership of my own bad behavior that needs to occur. It's not any condemnation of her bad behavior that's responsible for my bad behavior. There's no disputing that. I think Joseph of the CS Dreamcoat may be an ESTP. I'm not sure. I think he's ENTJ, but whatever he is, he's not an ENTP. Manuel Samparillo. Is CS Joseph INTJ? No. Stop writing people off. Who are you, King Eric? Oh, martial arts. You're so silly. I'm glad you're enjoying your time here. Fate Wind, yes, he has a pleasant face. He'll grow more handsome with age. It's like they're talking about Sam Harris now. Who's talking about Sam Harris? My guess is ESTJ for CS Joseph. It's a social engineering firm. TE, social engineering firm. No TI nor NI. SINE since it's other people's work. Oh, you're probably right, Sanjay. I don't really see. I guess, what I see as demonstrative NI sometimes could just as easily be him, like you said, reproducing stuff he's heard before. That makes sense. And I would agree that his NE seems more third slot than sixth. Yeah, just do the same thing over and over again if it helps. Doom. I like to always vary things up a little bit. Never do exactly the same thing. Sinjan, if each type has a quadro axis, I agree with you. He straddles defensive ESTJ and ESTP, I think. He's too self-assured to be intuitive at this age. It's a good point, Winston's mom as well. Thank you for the answers, says Eileen. You are welcome. If I was the one who answered you, I'm not sure. Yes, this is why Robert Mueller did not televise well. It's really helped me be more sure I'm an IFP. Why did I never stumble across C.S. Joseph before? I don't know. He probably, probably you watch YouTube videos by smart people, so YouTube algorithm says no point in putting C.S. Joseph in front of me. C.S. Joseph, he's bringing a whole lot of value to the type community. What do you mean value?
He's not.
How is he bringing value? I don't understand why anyone would think C.S. Joseph brings nothing. I don't think he brings nothing. I just don't think it's typological value. He may bring self-help value.
He brings value to himself, that's for sure.
Yeah. But he also may bring self-help value. Like his whole point is, it seems to be things come back to
It's life coaching. more
yeah,
than
life
anything.
coaching, right? It's more than it is explanation of things. So if you want life coaching, then great. Then maybe for you. As long as you don't care whether your life coaching is based on anything that makes sense or not. I did cash up with you.
I do. I have played Dungeons and Dragons. I don't play it currently, but it would be cool to find somebody to play with.
I'll play Dungeons and Dragons with you, Spacey. You have a sword. What are you gonna do? Oh, I'm gonna stab with it. Right on. I have played Dungeons and Dragons, being a dungeon master with TWFP community. On one occasion, we played in one of the Appear.in rooms. That was fun. It's a fun game. You know, I used to play when I was a little kid. Back before computers, I played tabletop Dungeons and Dragons. Computers came out, I started playing like Ultima and Bard's Tale and shit like that. You like his community comments. The reason Winston's why we like his community comments is because they're astroturfed the fuck out of them. He's astroturfed the fuck out of the comments. My son plays. I have hosted D&D games since 1980. My husband played, and then my son and his friends go over every weekend for a game or a sleepover. How far are you along with the Alpha Pride Parade? Well, in typical Alpha Quadrant fashion, there's been some discussion about it in the past, some talking about it. There may be further talking. After turning the comments means deleting all the shit that calls them out. I don't do that. I've been accused of it, even though I don't do that, I've been accused of it. That's the only reason I know the term. Just because someone's fucking comment goes to like the like approve this comment before it goes on thing in the back doesn't mean I deleted it. It just means I haven't gotten to, approving held comments. And if somebody puts a bunch of comments down, then YouTube algorithm goes, okay, maybe this is spam. I'm going to hold it. Well, there'll be floats. I want floats. There will be root beer floats. Root beer floats, or if you're really lucky, maybe we'll have root beer floats or Coke floats. You have a choice.
Oh, the baby Trump balloon will be there.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk some on cognitive extroversion, introversion versus social extroversion, introversion? Sure. I mean, the thing is, like what Spacey talked about when I was working on the pond is very much attentional extroversion.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's saying he wants to understand it inside his head first, and then he'll make it external. And I'm saying I want to externalize it, and that's how I'm going to figure out it inside my head. So I really don't. I do a fair amount of TIing by myself, I guess, in my head about shit, but I don't really get what I'm thinking about until I say it out loud and record it on a video. It's what makes this so satisfying for me, in part.
Well, the pond thing is actually a great example because you actually have to have something in front of you or something that's already been said to work with. So when you do something, you'll be like, oh well, that actually looks all right. Now I know how I can rip off of this, to continue.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I really have to see it realized in the external world. I heard INFJ YouTuber one time say that ENTPs actualize externally, and it stuck with me, and I've repeated it ever since. I think it's absolutely true that we actualize externally. I feel actualized when my self is made into objects like videos or songs or whatever, and I feel unwell when I'm not externalizing in that fashion. Okay, so I want everyone to be very careful at events, especially outdoor events. Understand your fight or flight response. Have a plan if everything goes downhill. You mentioned that before, for instance, but I think I'm going to actually take that to heart and think more about it. I did. I have thought about it already, actually, more. I thought about it in the car the other day, about what my response was and how the challenge is this. I don't want some fragment of my attention to be reserved in that fashion. like paying attention to contingencies that might be bad. But if I think about it ahead of time, I might be able to sort of have my cake and eat it too. This shirt here, unfortunately, Michael Thompson, I only had 4 of these made for the band members in my band that I had before, Talking to Famous People band. And I no longer have the band. And so there aren't any more of these shirts. I have really hard time when it comes to injustice. I always stand up for others, could not ignore this. Is this INTP?
Yes.
It could be. It depends how you define injustice, though. If you define injustice as things that are unfair according to articulatable critiques of justice, then probably. How does SENI work in ISFP art as opposed to NI DOMs?
They tend to do performance art very well, from what I've seen. They did good, cool outfits, and they have everything set up just right, and they do that stuff like what that one girl does, where she always covers her face or whatever, so nobody can see her.
What was that one girl? Lady Gaga?
No, there's someone else. Or they'll have big, choreographed things going on. I don't know. They always seem to be flashier, basically.
I would say about ISFPs.
Yeah, Bowie would be a pretty good example, maybe, of someone who could be an ISFP.
I would also say that if ISFPs are working in object media,
that's who it is.
if they're working as object media, then they're going to be working in visual object media. So it's
Right.
going to be like picture taking, photography, or something like that.
But
Which is
you find
consistent
them a
with
lot
the
in
third
music.
slide.
It's just there's always a big visual component. Or
In a producing object art, then it would
got
be
you.
visual probably.
right.
Although I did talk to one who was writing a book and who said that of my personal Facebook page, Talking with Famous People, has a Facebook closed group that you can join if you'd like to. That I guess is, I don't know, I haven't been on Facebook much lately.
Although I've heard people say Bowie was ENFJ or something like that.
I still feel like I need to see the idea alive for some reason. I do too. Performance art, that took me a second, Spacey. I agree with SC, come on with NI. Yeah, well, there's a funny kind of art called endurance performance art, which involves the audience. So it's like something really boring or unpleasant or just kind of not really engaging that you got to sit through for like 12 hours or something. I interviewed an endurance performance artist at a party I went to one time. There's a video somewhere of my interviewing with them. So that just seemed hilarious to me. Like, boy, talk about first world shit. Endurance performance art. I can get some good insight into people's train of thought by watching them play games. Yeah. In my head, it doesn't feel satisfying as well seeing it come to life.
ISFPs. Well, Michael Jackson, Prince, what's her name? That Scandinavian lady.
Bjork?
Bjork. I think she's an ISFP.
I agree. And I think INFP might be that chick from New Zealand, Lord. I think she might be an INFP.
I think she's like an ESFP, actually. But
her writing's too good, too young. She can't possibly be an ESFP. She's got to be an N. She's intuitive.
Is it her writing?
Yeah,
Oh.
I'm assuming it is. I'm assuming she's writing.
Well, maybe.
Well, Ahmed, why don't you email me, and maybe if you have a script with 2 characters spacing out, I'll produce it here around the house. Spacey can be, I'll play the lady. What's a Egyptian lady name?
Plated shirts. What? Oh, I just wear like Under Armour shirts all the time because I sweat like a pig. I don't wear cotton.
Michael Thompson, you're right. That's if she writes her own work. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure she writes the lyrics at least, and I think I think that's a band that they have a certain sound and everything. It seems like the vision of a singular person, and probably her. I think they're INF. I think she's INFP or possibly ENFP. Um, an artist living in Vietnam with a smoking hot lady. My son is in my garage writing and hosting forums. He is INTP classic geek nerd. I have very bad taste then it comes to close.
When it comes to clothes,
Oh, clothes. Oh, right.
just wear whatever's comfortable, Eileen.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about clothes. Clothes are stupid.
Unless you want a man, in which case you're gonna have to try a little bit, but just a little, because I'm sure you're still just adorable.
Hey, look who's here. Look who's back. We missed her. Stretch, she's back now.
Who's back?
I don't even know who that is. Shreddy Chandran. She's a lady. Awkward.
Marianne Williamson. Oh, she's an INFP.
I don't know who that is.
She's an INFP. She's like the most fairy tale INFP you can think of. Like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we had a world where everyone just loves each other and there was peace?
Sinjin says, I spent years writing and hosting forums, playing D&D and doing classic geek stuff. Maybe INTP after all. My friend Corey was also like that. My friend Corey also made a bunch of money on Bitcoin and did all that kind of shit, all that kind of techie stuff. So that's consistent with INFJ. I mean, it's one of the things that makes INFJ a particularly robust type. Like, even though they got TE polar, like Kimberly could never do that shit. INFJs can do that shit.
They are very versatile type, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. They're going to save the world with love? Who? Yeah, I'm highly skeptical online MBTI type lists. Well, they're made and affirmed by NI dimes to make up more than half of the MBTI community. It'd probably be more satisfying if I set out to do a novel, but it's not the same. Novels are hard to write. Cobain is the poster child of an INFP. I think Cobain's an INFJ. Shenzhen, are you playing a game now? I know.
Yeah, he's an SE type.
My Eric wants a good game. He has one. He has one, but they need players. The game's hosted from Austin. You're going to save the world with love? Good. Thank you. Appreciate that, martial arts. Good job. I commend you for your noble course of action. Central casting is my definite way of sparking my creativity for creation of all forms. The randomness of it all rubs my NE good. It's funny that it's funny. When I go to make characters, I don't base them on people really. Usually, I haven't in the past. I haven't written fiction in a while. No, sorry, I'm currently gameless. NFPs are into mystical, while NFJs are into mystery. NE versus NI interests. I agree with Cobain being INFJ for what that's worth. I'm at Assam. Who knows what form your idea will take? The joy is in the journey, but gosh darn it, everyone tends to beat me to the destination. I see my ideas as sold on TV too late. Is that why INFJs are praised in the community since they have the most well-rounded function tag and they're appealing to deliver every single type? I think, I don't know if they're praised in the community.
They're not praised. They're just looked at like a unicorn or something. Like, oh, they're so rare. Oh, they're so mysterious.
Well, I mean, I think it's more than that, though. It's like, it is the case that historically, Sinjin, who's definitely a real INFJ, has come in here and dropped some NI bombs, has made a point of saying things in this context that resonate more powerfully than most of the sort of things that people are saying. So he's going to be afforded a certain amount of respect because he's managed that carefully. I praise them, martial arts. I praise them for a number of reasons. One, I find it very easy to work with them when I'm making a video, for example. They and I have a subtextual conversation that's going on that I don't really have with any other type. There's a certain amount with INTP as well, but it's neither INTP nor ENTP is particularly obsessed with engaging that channel of shit, you know. At first, I thought I'm an INFJ, but this was wrong. You sure have to back the tests up there so often correct. Yeah, you really can't trust online tests at all, because the way to properly test somebody's functions is to try to draw out the function display itself and see how it manifests. So you've got to be pushing and pulling and prodding. You know, there's this, I don't know if it's actually true, but there's this sort of like thing that happens in movies or on TV or in cartoons or whatever, where somebody's doing brain surgery and they push this one spot and it makes this part move, and they push this other spot and it makes this other part move and stuff like that. Well, cognitive functions are like that. You got to push spots and see what moves, and then you'll be able to tell what type they are. But you can't really do it in any other way. I don't think it's possible for a person to be typed with an algorithm that is not reactive or responsive.
You have to be typed by a human being because it's not scientific.
Right, basically. There's some things you could test directly with a uniform test, like TI. You can give a TI skills test, and it'll give you some pretty good information about where the person's TI is, or at least if it's polar or not. But and you can also give SI tests that are pretty definitive, I guess, in some ways. But that requires them to be honest. The SI ones, the TI one doesn't even require them to be honest because it's just a pure skills test. So yeah. Winston's mom pulls a little NI out of her hat here. Central casting and stereotyping exists for a reason. Our collective consciousness has agreed that doctors look like Einstein and presidents look like a cowboy riding into town with a white hat. At first, I thought I'm INFJ, but this was wrong. Yes, I read that already. I praise them too. For real, I praise them, but they're still mostly praised by themselves. I mean, real INFJs probably don't praise themselves very much because they understand the consequences of that. Probably a lot of self-identifying INFJs praise INFJs because they're not really INFJs. I spent months in Reddit wandering each community. I tried mirroring to see if I fit in, but nope, I'm comfortable in my skin. Spending time on YouTube confirms this. YouTube's agreeably ergonomic to your ontology. Type me, Eric. I can't afford the fee. Well, you are. What do you want to be? You can do what you want. I'll give you a free type choosing certificate. You can choose your own type. I think you need to know. Not helping anyone. Yeah, I agree with you there, Eileen. SI goes into details, but NI sort of generalizes. Well, I mean, the thing is, NI factors in, you know, why this is a genuine matter of importance, whereas SI just assumes that what's happened before is going to happen again. I mean, SI is the type that's going to be the most PTSD. That's what you were saying. We were talking about that, right?
Yeah, last night.
Last night. Because they're going to have the strongest association with the traumatic event and the triggers. So the people who have the triggery part of PTSD, where the phone rings, and because one time the phone rang, and then the stove blew up in the kitchen and killed your father. Now every time the phone rings, you get a little panicky feeling. That's the stronger that association, the higher up SI is going to be probably. What polars have you eliminated? Good questions, Freddie Chandran about Ahmad Assam. Functions are a tautology. For example, X lacks vision because X lacks I. And I. Well, I mean, I guess if you, is that a tautology? I guess if you're saying vision and NI are the same thing, but that's, I don't think you've done enough parsing on that, frankly. Part of the INFJ allure comes from the mystical aura of wisdom attached to the NIFE combo. Most of it's bullshit, obviously. Same thing happens with NITE. INTJs aren't really movie villains about the current world.
No, INTJs are totally different. I feel like it might come from the fact that like TE is not metaphysical in the way that like Effie is, because they always come off much more dry, much less mystical.
Fate Wind says, makes sense. SI looks at the impression some event had on them, and I look for why that event happened, something like that. Well, it's another example of this is the fact that a dog bit one of our chickens. Now, the way the dog got into the backyard, because the gates were all closed, was it pushed through a board in the fence, which I then fixed thereafter. However, because our chicken got bit by a dog, Kimberly generalized out that the chickens are at risk for dog bite in general, and started freaking out anytime I let the chickens out onto the driveway because some random dogs might wander down the driveway from the street and attack our chickens. Now, this is not something you can SI directly link because, in fact, if she had paid attention to the specifics, the NI specifics of what happened, she'd realize that the dog getting the chicken had nothing to do with our failure to prevent the dogs from getting the chickens, right? But she doesn't think of it that way. She rejects the NI aspects entirely and just goes, chicken got hurt, my fault because I didn't prevent it, and therefore we're going to take extreme measures to make sure that nothing like that ever happens again. The lightning detector phenomenon. There was this lady in Florida whose child got struck by lightning, and the child was playing softball. She was like a teenager, and went into a vegetative coma and then eventually died. And this mother went to the Florida legislature and advocated passionately in favor of getting lightning detectors installed in all the parks in Florida. Now, this is a textbook ignoring of NI, which is there are some things we don't direct energy towards preventing because they're so unlikely and so rare that it would never be worth the energy we put into preventing them to prevent them from that if it would be successful. It would be very difficult to prevent anyway. Even if you put lightning detectors in all the parks, is that going to prevent lightning from striking people? No, it might maybe prevent a weird freak lightning strike like the one that got that one lady, maybe, if that were to happen again anytime in the next 20 or 30 years, So it's there's a failure to recognize that sometimes there are some sort of risks implicit in life, that there are, SI is particular. It doesn't matter whether this makes sense in general. It was important in my life, therefore it's important in my understanding of the world.
Well, I don't know what's going on here in Winston's mom, but I can tell you as an electrician that every pool enclosure should be grounded when it's first put in there. That's not something where you're like, oh, we had to do it and it was so expensive. No, that is like a fundamental.
She's saying about this. Then everyone had to have pool fences around their pools.
Oh, okay.
She's just pointing out the progression of safety things. Now, I do tend to agree that a pool should be electrically grounded because you don't want to electrocute a whole pool full of people, right? As far as the fence thing goes, that's annoying because a lot of people don't have a little kid, but they're still required to put a fence around their pool. Well, but the neighbor's kid might come over and get it. Well, then fuck the neighbor's kid for trespassing, How much of your polar can be learned? For example, an SE polar person does stuff due to training, TI polars do TI stuff due to standardized tests. Well, I mean, I think the SE polar person, you don't learn SE. There's a certain amount of baseline SE that's a minimum for being a human being. In other words, Spacey has to have some capacity to get up from his seat and go to the bathroom. He can't just sit in his seat forever, right? And just pee. And so there's a basic level of getting up and doing shit that's everybody's enabled to do. But the thing is, the attentional manner is one that says, I know how to go from task to task to task, check things off of a list, and feel satisfied by getting shit handled. And that's what SE polar people don't have. They need to get their motivation from another angle. So if there's an external motivation, like I say, come on, Spacey, I need your help with this. Then there's an FE motivation and maybe a TI-TEFE kind of combo motivation thing that's going on that doesn't really involve SE because he's not having to use his own attention to SE. He's getting to piggyback off someone else's SE attention.
Yes.
Alligators are all over Florida. Fences keep out the gators just as well. My grandmother was chased by a gator who ate all of the neighborhood poodles. I live in California. There aren't any alligators here. We still have this rule about the fences around the pools. And, it's bullshit because if I have a pool and your kid gets into my yard and drowns, that's not my fucking fault.
Wait, what if a kid gets electrocuted because they were touching the fence?
Okay,
You ever think of that?
well, that would be my fault, yes.
No.
I think so. If they were in their yard touching my fence and it electrocuted them, that's why I don't have an electric fence.
Oh, violated the nap.
Yeah, right.
Shooting you in the head.
Touched my border, instant death. People who like lists will happily add something to their list just to cross it off. So I've heard, and I have a certain satisfaction in that. I've done that before. I think Delta Quadrant's FI is more like the FE descriptions online, and Beta Quadrant's FE is more like the FI descriptions online. I don't agree with that. I think they're the same. It's just, Beta Quadrant's FE is about perceptions and stuff. It's just the reason Beta Quadrant's FE seems different than Alpha's is because it's mixed with NI universalism rather than SI particularism. So it's like one of the conflicts that happened in the summer camp blow up was I was saying, look, all these particulars define this circumstance and they make it something unique that is what it is, and we have to deal with it as it is. The NI types, the Beta Quadrant in particular, got offended because they kept reducing it down to an NI thing it wasn't. It was not what it had been taught it as or what I had portrayed it as even. I tend to exclude things I don't think, it's like I'll reserve arguments that probably I have to make right away because I don't think that they need to be said until the work's been done to elicit them. But, that's just a bad habit, not thinking about it.
I think Shreddy's observing what I've seen called as like adaptive versus directive FE, things like that. Whereas like the beta FE users will maybe be more, they'll use it to organize and control people, sort of. They're saying, listen, this is the way the FE has to be. Whereas alpha is a little bit more, democratic, I guess.
Yeah.
Adaptive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's
the same way with FI between gamma and delta, I think. The gammas tend to be a little more prickly.
So Eric, Surprise Chandler said, Eric, I meant the Beta Quadrant is way more about authenticity, expressing yourself, and being willing to shove yourself in people's face to rile them up. I believe I'm about authenticity. I just think that it's about, the basic frame of beta is things are what they are, and you can't get away from that ultimately. And alpha's basic quadra is things are particularist, and you can't get away from that basically. So it's it's just. Typically, alpha and beta quadrant won't come into a lot of conflict, except when, there's something that doesn't collapse well into universals, perhaps, and there's an attempt to do that, or something that does, and an attempt to particularize it. So if there's a conflict on those two areas, then there's going to be a difference in how things are viewed. But can be used to further harmony, of course, but can be used to fuck it up if necessary too. FE, yeah. Of course, the best function descriptions of process.
All right, Nut Jobs, are you still live streaming?
Yeah. Freddie, what do you think authentic means? Or simply to challenge old FE or TE based hierarchy?
Nerd.
I was referring to behavioral displays. ENFJs are authentically inauthentic. That's well said, I think. I think we need to understand the layers that go into a person. Nature versus nurture, psychology, philosophy, science, including neuroscience, to understand how to think about thinking. I mean, the thing is, most people, the explanation doesn't need to be that complicated. It's as simple as, well, there's a lot of times when I think I did something or didn't realize something was being extremely boneheaded. And I tell myself, well, you're an SI user. You're not paying attention to the NI, you're ignoring it. And that's why you didn't think, duh. I just sort of excuse it because it's not like I'm cutting myself any slack. There's no way for me to go about suddenly noticing shit that I don't notice. All betas are direct with their speech, straight to the point. Alpha are all informing. Speech is often ambiguous, also they can talk your ear off. And that's because of the particularist element, right? So I've got my point I have to make. I've got the particular examples I want to give that are demonstrative of that point. I want to give the TI logic behind it that's, makes it the preferable argument. I want to position it in FE ways that make people feel happy. And I want to make sure it resonates with NI. And I want to do all of that shit. And then I also want to talk with my NE about ways in which I might be not quite all the way right. So that's why talking to me is going to be informing, because I'm not really trying to advocate, usually. Now, when I was younger, I used to advocate a lot more. And I used to get into a lot more rhetorical conflicts. But I don't so much anymore. And so it is more definitely informing and it's sort of deconstructive. Like, I've learned to become more constructive in my rhetoric, but nevertheless, like an INTP, I spend a lot of time eliminating things as not good statuses because of X, Y, or Z. For Beta Quadra, authenticity is about not being afraid to be themselves. It's more like, I'm being myself, I won't change, get out of my way. Where is that? Either get with the program or get out of my way. And it takes a lot of frustration for me to get to that point. And I have gotten to that point on a couple of occasions. But the thing is, and I recognize that, as I even said one time to Kimberly, I had a conversation where I said, look, this is time where we need to adopt some Beta Quadra values here. This requires leadership. I know none of us here like to lead or follow, and we don't like that. We prefer democratic arrangements. But right now, there are some things in life where lead, follow, or get out of the way is the, in fact, defining NI truth of the matter. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. And I can definitely shift into Beta Quadra mode when I'm coaching, for example, or if I'm frustrated with my relationships progress over time. It's like, fundamentally, are we working towards a common goal or not? And that's something that Beta Quadra keeps in mind that Alpha Quadra doesn't. Then there's conservative natures versus liberal nature, risk versus reward. Ignoring FI for their FE, for the FE is their authentic mode of behavior. That's true for ENFJs. They're authentically inauthentic. Can you generalize the quadras? I can generalize alpha and beta pretty well, like I just did. I don't like the NTJ SFP quadra. They are, I just see them as like as defined by their FI in general. Like that, regardless of how the logical ones, like the INTJ or ENTJ or whatever else, that they're either defined by there's need for FI and the lack thereof, and therefore their lack of a sense of self that's meaningful, as in the ENTJ, or they're defined by their obsession with FI, like the INTJ, you wouldn't really realize it, but that's really what defines them, is their obsession with FI. Or you're talking about types who are going to run afoul of my understanding of things a bit, because they're either polar TI or polar NE, ESFP and ISFP. So it's like it's a quadra that I like and can hang out with INTJs. I even like and can hang out with ENTJs. ISFPs, sexy as fuck. ESFPs drive me crazy. But ISFPs, if I have any dispute with them, it'll blow up immediately into a big ass fucking fight, and it won't make any progress at all because they're not going to use any TI when they're engaged emotionally. ESFPs, I just go like, your 6-slot FE is strange, and the lack of TI engagement with me about things is frustrating. But it depends what we're talking about. Sometimes I have some good conversations with ESFPs.
ESFPs aren't for having conversations; they're for partying.
That's true. I actually think that it applies to the whole quadra. INFJs not as much, probably. INFJs are the most alpha of the beta quadra people, because they've got fifth slot NE, which is strong, and they've got 8th slot SI, which is strong. So it makes them more alpha-like. ENFJ would rather manipulate the cooperation rather than elicit conflict from revealing their actual intent. Yeah, the thing is that most people think that the whole "I only know how to be me to be authentic, get out of the way if you don't like that" would be FI, but it really isn't. Uh, well, I mean, it is FI, but it's an FI response from somebody who's been frustrated by having been forced to come to their FI. Like, okay, you're challenging me too much on particularist grounds, so I'm going to turn the particularist against you and say, I'm particularist. I only know how to be me. I'm authentic. Blah blah blah. So it's FISI kind of a thing, you know. But it's the sort of thing that's said when somebody's frustrated by being forced to be in their FI for too long. Sure, I agree with that, Freddie. ESP is a little more obvious in that regard compared to ENFJ and INFJ. Can you offer me an explanation of how you would approach a situation where your values are different from the group values? I mean, it depends on the circumstance. It depends on whether I want to fit in. It's like if I'm going to some place where the values are different. I'm with Kimberly. I probably want to make sure that she's FE satisfied at the end of the evening. So I'm going to try these days anyway to do my best to be on my best behavior or something.
If there's always one type in each quadra that is sort of an exception to the rule.
What do you think that type is for Alpha?
Could be ENTP actually.
Which quadra do you think I'm more like?
Like you said, you can shift into beta kind of.
Oh yeah. I think INFJ and ENTP would make sense as sort of the
right
crossover types there a little bit.
I think maybe like ISFP and Gamma
would be like what?
They're like the SE second types. They look like intuitive sometimes, so they almost look like they could be Delta, I guess.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, the thing is that most people think that the whole. Okay, I read that already. Kimberly is an ISFJ, and so is my closest female friend. She bristles when I try to type her personality or offer suggestions as her type. She also feels like she must be helpful, and that makes her grumpy when she's overtaxed, but still feeling like she must keep helping or protecting those in need. She doesn't have her kind of fun. Well, that's what I'm saying is what I want is Kimberly to relax and be happier and less stressed out, and that requires a certain amount of trust. Do you get along with ISTJs? I do. I have my friend Cameron who's an ISTJ. He really helped me out the other day by lending me a code reader for my car, trying to get it smogged without having to replace the cat. There's a lovely young INFJ named Boom Shaka. She has a channel and creates content. She is my first INFJ. She has large soulful eyes and stands in the wood, talk about her feelings. I like her. Music to make up getting angry over the type police vid. I don't know what that's talking about. Yeah, I don't think it's FI or SI though, Eric. I would never do that myself unless I mistype myself. Well, no, what I'm saying is it's an expression of FI boundaries by somebody who's not an FI user. So in that regard, it's saying, okay, I need to defend myself in this area, but I don't want to use TI logical reasonings, and I don't want to use FE appeals. In other words, I just want you to respect my boundary. That's an FI expression by somebody who doesn't use FI and it's unaccustomed. Grasshopper have you, and it may be a very unnuanced understanding of FI, but it's the basic limit, which says this is important to me for reasons specific to me, and I'm going to draw a boundary here without justifications beyond that. Hello world, says Alexander Cruz. Hello, Alexander Cruz. What are the exception types for each quadra? I don't know what they all would be. Maybe Basic can figure that out. INTP is kind of Delta. I guess you could say that each type is kind of partially of another quadra in some regard. You could do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, Gamma maybe. I don't know.
I don't think INFP is particularly alpha. No, they're not. It's just that in this context, INFPs get along well in this kind of environment because, for one thing, I'm an ENFP who's got a pretty robust relationship with FI at this point and respect for other modalities and understanding about how, there's that it actually matters. It's like I used to be very careless, really, in my communications, and I'd say shit that pissed people off all the time. I try not to do that anymore.
I've always liked INFPs, even when I was younger. I think if I tried to get in an argument with one when I was a kid, I probably wouldn't have liked them, but I like the vibes that I get from them.
Yeah, Hambone, I think you're right. All types have a second quadrant based on fifth and eighth. So
Mm-hmm.
TEFI, you know, you'd be in that quadra, whatever quadra that is.
Yeah.
TEFI, NESI, whatever quadra
Delta.
that
Yeah,
is.
that
Delta.
does make sense, actually. That's why I come up as INFP all the time.
ISTJs make very simple tasks seem extremely complicated, which can be kind of interesting. They also make very complicated tasks seem very simple, which is very good. Complicated to me because they involve a lot of TE. Mom, mommy, mama, mama. Thank you, but perhaps I made it better. Ferret than parent. Ferret than parent. Alexander Cruz is a beautiful name. I wanted to name my son Chase Alexander, but my husband said they would. Eric, listen to me. Did you type Keanu Reeves? No, I haven't typed Keanu Reeves. INFPs and ESFPs were my closest friend when I was younger, along with some EHPs. You're smart. You're loyal. I appreciate that. Thanks, martial arts. Which type are you, Alexander Cruz? Asks Blue Nowhere. So then would INFP be ultra delta or would they be gamma? Certainly not beta. Well, INFP would be, you're talking about FETI. So you're saying INFP would be.
They would be alpha in that framework.
But would they? No, it would be FE, NE. Oh, yeah. TE. No, they can't have no, FE and then TI, NE, SI. Yeah, that make them alpha. You're right. That INFJs, for some reason, I always have fallouts with INFJs. I mean, I've gotten an INFJ door slam before. I've gotten INFJ treated, in various ways by a couple different INFJs in the past. The thing is, the problem INFJs have is that anything short of a door slam doesn't work with the ENTP because we just aren't having it. We assume the language will solve the problem. So they got to fully door slam me, or they'll end up, being like, "Oh, we're cool." Keanu Reeves looks like my boyfriend in high school. He took me for my first round of coke. Glasses of rum and rails of blow. Sounds like a good first date to me. I have actually pegged INFP as alpha. I would have actually pegged INFP as alpha. Yeah, INFP's half alpha. ENTP's half beta. What do you think about an INFJ INTJ relationship? You got each other's tools as your polar. That's not a good thing. Why do INFJs door slam? You think INTJs do it as well? I don't know why.
I think a lot of types do that.
I guess it's just a way of ending all problems associated with a given person all at once.
Right.
And just not having to deal with any of them. So that makes sense. But why I got door slammed, I like to the fact that he was aware that he had done some things that he's done and said things he shouldn't have done and said. And he didn't want to be accountable for that, basically. And I didn't necessarily need to hold him super accountable, but I had some hurt feelings too. It was like he wasn't being a very good friend. So, he probably had some hurt feelings too, but he didn't want to talk that shit out. At that point, he's got to forsake his FE tool function, go purely to like TI and or.
No, this INFJ door slam shit is just another way that people try to get INFJs to be perceived as, hard to get and aloof and unapproachable. And if you want to be them, you better not fuck up or they'll door slam you.
Well, I mean, but it has happened to me.
I'm sure it has.
As an SI user,
I
I think, well, there we go.
Like, I've seen INFPs do the same shit, I've seen ESFPs do the same thing. My sister does it better than anyone. Fuck it, I'm done with you.
The door slam is painful and uncomfortable. Yes, we do this. I did this when I found myself unable to respond to someone because their proximity became like nails on a chalkboard and they questioned my intent as genuine. They did not see that knowledge is power, and after all these years, thought it was simply being pretentious. In other words, they disrespected and invalidated your perspective consistently over time. You notice INFJs tend to interrupt people a lot? I don't. I think there's actually more behind it. INFPs do what? Is it really romanticized? Sounds odd. Door slam is an internet myth. Colon P. It's a constant dragging down and never lifting up. Yeah, exactly. That's if that happens, Winston's mom, then And the thing is, you're not a type of person as an INTJ who's inclined to sit there and explain what's happening over and over again or try to resolve it in that fashion. So you're going to have some other alternative approach. What about the INFJ stare? Do you feel the mystery and guru-like wonder behind those older guys? I see in them an awareness of a certain subtextual communication channel that I can tune into when I'm talking with them. And that it makes the communication between the two types, ENTP and INFJ, uniquely rich in some regard.
INTPs like INFJs too. You don't own them.
I know I don't own them. I'm just talking from my own experience as an SI user. I don't want to extend my NI too far. You might NI demonstratively check me.
Check yourself.
Okay. There you go. See, that's NI demonstrative checking me right there. You believe that every type is valuable and serves a distinct purpose?
It seems to me like any type that has sufficient NI and or FI will be inclined to do such things as door slamming. I don't know.
I would say that every individual person
Well, yeah, exactly.
is valuable and serves their own unique destiny. But I don't.
But if you are going to try to generalize it, I find it hard to narrow it down to INFJ specifically.
What does it mean to glass someone at the bar? Sinjin says, we cut down toxic relationships, but every sane person would do that, not just INFJ.
Probably hit him over the head with a beer bottle.
INFPs might not. INFPs might try to fix it. Is INFJ compatible with ESTP? I'm a little scared of those door slams. INFJ is very compatible with ESTP. They're duals. I don't know. Maybe it's because NI did not like deliberation. He just wants to get to the point. Hence the interruption. And what I find INFJ FE is too good, too aware to be guilty of those kind of social mistakes unless it's necessary. Like if they really need to get something across and somebody else is monopolizing the conversation, maybe, but even then they're coming in with an apology for interrupting. I don't think that's the case at all, Freddie Chandran. Do INFJs have difficulty with boundaries where they give and give to someone and others take advantage of that? Mm-mm.
Martial arts is right.
No one door slams for no reason except that they're unhealthy. Well, I mean, having a reason, people have explicit reasons for doing things and implicit reasons for doing things. Reasons they're fully aware of and less so, depending on how habituated they are to objective self-criticism. I don't think that that's the case at all. That most door slams may be any type of borderline tendencies. The whole idea of borderline personality disorder is, I hate you, don't leave me. What is it about the INFJ's processes that makes them the best at perception management? Are ISFJs just as good? No, they're not just as good. Or at least they're good at managing somewhat different kind of perceptions. INFJ will be perceived as smart. ISFJ often will not. And because INFJ is both more, function oriented towards the naturally occurring displays of smartness, namely language-based smartness, and than ISFJ will ever be. And ISFJs don't typically, they want to be perceived as smart. They think they're smart, and they want other people to think they're smart. But they want other people to think they're sort of street smart, clever, not easily taken advantage of. They don't necessarily want to be thought of as intellectual.
Right. I wasn't born yesterday.
Right. When our self-image can no longer be protected, then we have no choice, but we risk being a hypocrite and hurting the other person worse than we hurt. Right. That's absolutely true. And the thing is, we have to understand where our understanding of self draws clear lines. And that's very difficult for an FI polar person. Finding out what's really important to me in a relationship. It was one of the benefits of being with Kimberly. I found out that what's really important to me is that I be heard and respected. Question for Spacey: what makes an INTP 9 different from other INTPs, say a 5?
We're way more chill. I'm probably way less inclined to try to correct people if they say something wrong or start any genuine conflict with people. A lot of the time I feel like my head's pretty empty and I'm just at the surface of water with no ripples in it at all, just tranquil, not thinking, not moving.
Remember, Spacey's busy right now conserving energy for later.
That's what the 9s are like for me, especially if you're a deliberation type or something. You're just gonna be melting into the.
Wainamoinen is a demigod hero in the central character in Finnish folklore and the main character in the national epic Kalevala. His name comes from the Finnish word Vaina, meaning stream pool. Wainamoinen was described as an old and wise man. He possessed a potent magical voice. Can you describe FI's scorecard? How does FI use the scorecard? Well, I can describe it pretty simply. Using the ISTJ as an example. My friend Cameron, he comes over and he's genuinely interested and pleased by when he can help me in some way. He wants to come over here and ask me, and me ask him to help me with something. And if he can help me with something and make my life a little bit better in that fashion, it gives him a great deal of satisfaction. Why? Because he actually values me personally. And the reason I suspect is an SI thing. He was at a particularly low point when I sort of coincidentally reached out to him and engaged him in working on this project with me to draw some pictures for him. I was looking for people. I was looking for somebody to draw pictures. And I noticed on Facebook, he popped up in my feed. I didn't really even know the guy. He was the little brother of a friend from high school. Turns out, I guess at that moment, he was very much isolated, alone, and going through some hard times and shit. And hanging out with me for a long time thereafter. We became friends and hung out and did a lot of shit together. And basically, I gave him the any he was seeking. And he really appreciates that and still appreciates that. And it's not like a tit for tat thing. It's like he actually values me. And so he actually wants to make me happy. And it gives him satisfaction to know that I've been hooked up, even if not because it's some sort of okay, now we're back to being even or some shit like that. He enjoys the actual FI shit. Casey, you're not at least passively working through things in your head?
Oh, I am, but I don't feel like there's anything going on in my head, but I'm pretty sure that there is. It's just I don't know, subconscious processing or something.
Since in order to be likable to everybody, it necessitates hiding parts of yourself. Isn't that hard for them? Vane Moynihan says he does in fact possess that voice. Ahmed says, I think that's where some possession management comes into play. Sinjin says, depends on the individual motivation. It's when I make them undress, usually. Liking is not a stable state, I'm thinking. Oops, I'm behind now. And some perception management. That means she cares about you. ISTJs only take time to help somebody if they care about them. Right. I care about them too, and I feel kind of guilty because I forget about them and I don't talk to them for months and stuff like that. But it's since I moved out here. We used to live close together. Uncertainty FI scorecard. Behaving in accordance with their values, deliberating about their values, including their moral and good when their intentions are good. I mean, that would be true. The thing is, SI, FI combined like that in ISTJ, they get an increasingly clear sense of they know what they like, they know what they want to do, and gives them satisfaction, and they try to do it. Cameron's always going out and riding his like electric scooter thing, like off road and shit. Doing a bunch of ISTJ shit. He buys and sells objects. He like repairs those things and sells them for profit, stuff like that. Undermining determining that their values are uncertainty determining their values are internally consistent. What is a scorecard? Scorecard is a third slot function. So basically, if you read about the core issue of the type 9, it might really hit your FI hard if you were a 9. I'm surprised you're still streaming this philosophical thinker. So am I.
Oh, I've read all of it.
I'll end it 3 hours probably. There's plenty of time for that. I have to triple my D vitamin intake in winter for it's so dark and dreary. It's hard not to get upset. How much of your 9 description just has to do with FE 4th and SE 7th, though? What other types are likely to be 9s? I mean, I do think that type correlates with Enneagram somewhat. I think ENFPs are likely to be 7s. If they're not, they're likely to be 8s.
I think they're pretty likely to be 9s as well.
ENFPs, there's some 9s out there.
Any DOMs in general, I think, can trend towards 7 and 9 for me. And the SE DOMs trend towards 7 and 8 for me. But I could be a little off with that.
Are STJs and NFPs a good match, though? Yeah, I think they are. If you get an ISTJ and an ENFP, my ISTJ friend Cameron, he's got an ESFP girlfriend, and it's not good. Now, the intuitives don't match better with intuitives. We need the complementary aspect of the partner to be a sensor. And I think ISTJs actually get the feeling certain they're forgotten about. We'll never actually say that out loud. The egg comes before the chicken. I would imagine, tell me please, who is your favorite musician, or perhaps suggest a video to get the idea of your country better. And you're talking to that place, the guy with the stream and the voice. I think a lot of INTPs will have 9-ish characteristics. The dinosaur came first, according to everyone but Eric. No, I think dinosaurs came before people. I just don't think that we evolved from them. The chicken came before the egg. Are you insane? But who laid the egg to make the rooster to make the chicken lay the egg? A pre-chicken. Proto-chicken. 9s play dead to survive. Imagine that working. I'm a basic 584. Well, 584 is better than 684. 684 is a fucking bear. Jen, everyone has something that defies their logic. I find it impossible to believe that an asteroid wiped out all of Earth. Take that, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I feel so ashamed. I mean, the thing is, I'm at the forefront of a wave of reality here that's going to crash all over evolution. I read an interesting article the other day about exactly this, where there's this very well-respected academic who came out and said, this is all bullshit. This makes no sense. This is like become a religion. These people are doing the concentric circle thing, like I've said before, coming up with so many convoluted explanations of how the basic engine of evolution is still correct, even though there's no indication that it is. But I do think that obviously dinosaurs inhabited the earth before people ever did. Do you think ISFPs use SE least of all the sensor types? No. I think an SI type would use SE least of the sensor types, probably. Well, no, actually, you might be right about that, Kathleen. That's a very interesting question, and you might be exactly right about that. It might be ISTP though who uses it least. I think not ISFP. I think ISTP is the most metaphysical version of an SE12 type. ESTP can be very metaphysical as well, but I think ISTPs are actually more metaphysical. They're just not ideationally active. I hate to inform you about this, but you're wrong about your theories you made up about MBTI and functional stacks. Oh, well, thanks, Jim Beam. Well, because of your powerful reasoning, I'm going to definitely agree with you, right? Because you've justified it with a powerful reason that I can agree with and believe. Oh, no, that's not true. You just made a random claim without any justification. So since you initiate the topic in that fashion, I can conclude right away you're not probably going to have much useful to say, but I'm certainly willing to hear it anyway. But you don't begin the conversation by understanding the purpose of rhetoric or dialectic or whatever. So, or you're already -5. Spacey, how did you distinguish between having 2 or 4 in your tri-type? What do you have, 2 or 4 in your tri-type, Spacey?
Oh, I've never thought I had. 4 has always been my heart fix for sure. That was easy.
Sinyan says, I thought it was 548 for some time. I don't think so anymore. More likely 953. Well, I mean, it gets rid of your 8 and your 4. Like Spacey, I feel a lot of FI too, but not the sad, damp kind, more of a hot FI. Is your FI hot or cold and damp, Spacey?
I want to say mine is pretty hot too, but I need more elaboration.
Oops, says Hambone, I outed myself. I'm crazy. It's fine, by the way, because 548 is kind of insane, actually. Yeah. They are intense. I dated a 548, although I think she was probably a 584 or a 485, probably actually a 485. But yeah, she was super intense. 648 is fighty as fuck. KFC, now I want a fried chicken. We're all mad here. I initially wondered if I was type 5. Then I thought I was a type 9. Strong and or valued NI plus TI equals metaphysical. Yeah. I mean, the metaphysical functions are NI, TI, NE, and FE. Those are the metaphysical functions. And the physical functions are SE, FI, TE, and SI. Freddie Chandran, how do you see the 5 type? You remind me of Benjamin, who I suspect is also a 9. Eric, have you ever dated a 9? No, I never. I don't think I ever dated a 9. I dated a 2, which was nice. My ESFJ was a type 2. She was very helpful. I gotta say, if you want a wife, get yourself a fat little Mexican ESFJ woman, and you're golden. They are very, very helpful. Enneagram is far superior to any of these made-up MBTI theories. Well, Jim Beam, fortunately for us, Enneagram is not exclusive of cognitive functions. So that's not you're not going to get anywhere with that line of argumentation. And worse than that, you once again demonstrated you don't know how to think properly. Okay, well, I don't get that sad often. I either get an existential scare anger rush when I get hot in the FI. I don't get sad very often either, but I do occasionally. All theories are made up. Are they? You mean human communication comes from human beings? I want a wife, but I would have to cheat on her with a man for the intimate moments. Oh, yeah. Well, maybe you should get your husband a sister wife. I can be pretty intense, but it's not a good thing. Makes a lot of enemies. Well, hey, my mom is a fat little Mexican ESFJ woman. They are very much wifey mom material. They are. She was great. I have no hard feelings towards Candace. Now, we didn't last primarily because Candace was NI polar and didn't understand that didn't understand what was determining things, but it was fine. She was great until we were done. 9-wing-8 is the bear, and I am an obvious werebear. Yes, but Eric has pulled his theory out of his ass. Okay, well, Jim Beam, here's your problem. I didn't pull it out of my ass, though, right? It's Jung's notion of cognitive functions. I've explained it in great detail. I've talked about how I presented the case in a way that's not meaningfully disputable, and you've ignored all that. And you haven't actually addressed anything I've said about anything. You've just attacked what I'm doing as pointless and meaningless, pulling it out of my ass. And yet, I don't know. How much Jim Beam have you had today, Jim Beam? Tolkien, ISTJ or INFP? I don't know. Isn't that a gay term? The bear? Possibly. ISTJ, just read his academic work. Okay, there's your answer. I also have Spanish ancestry. Were your family from Mexico or other Latin American places? I don't know. Sinjin, I don't know you admittedly, but I think your comments are indicative of being a 5. There's a level of analysis and engagement. Eric has no basis for his conclusions he makes. Except I've already given you a basis for the conclusion I made about you, Jim Beam, that you aren't a good thinker because you make unwarranted claims. That's a justification. It's a warrant. Okay? So that's the basis for a conclusion. You might disagree with the basis. You might say that warrant is incorrect, but that's the warrant. What you are not giving is a warrant for your claims. And that's why you are a bad thinker. Even a certain willingness to confront stuff and call people out without sugarcoating or walking on eggshells like a 9 would. Is there any sense in seeing extroverted functions as objective in some way and introverted functions as subjective? No, that's fucking wrong. There are 2 objective introverted functions and 2 objective extroverted functions. And 2 subjective introverted and 2 subjective extroverted. And I've made plenty of videos in which I explain all the definitional implications of the word objective and subjective and how we can use them in different ways, this way or that way, but regardless, we're stuck with the same conclusion. I have a gleefully aggressive side, as Taylor once put it, but it's still consistent with 9-wing-8, I think. We have a county over in Kentucky where Jim Beam dumped into the lake. The fish have a happy hour. I think being raised by 2 Mexican SJs has grounded me into a more grounded INTP. You know how culture is. Yeah, and I think that SJs would be a good parents for an INTP, because INTPs want a lot of FE, and hopefully your SJ parents told you how wonderful you were all the time, how smart and how clever and how much they loved you. And then in that case, you'll be fine. As an INTP, you'll be more well-rounded, like you said. Extroverted functions are easy to observe. Doesn't mean they're objective, though. Sinjin, I don't know if an actual 9 would ever think they had an 8 in their tri-type. I mean, an actual 8 messes around for messing around. I mean, I got a second, probably, or third in my tri-type, but I feel as though it's fading from me more and more. With the exception of getting angry at Kimberly periodically, I don't seem to really get angry much anymore. Would an Enneagram 6 ENTP be more prone to self-doubt and thus ignore NI even more than usual? It would seem that an Enneagram 6 would correlate more strongly with SI than NI, and thus would be more prone to ignoring NI, I guess. I have a question about debate. Is there a winner only when each of the parties have come to a consensus? Debate is adversarial. So debate is one. Debate needs to be judged by a third party who's being fair and objective and is judging the round on the arguments made by the debaters only. So I might be arguing something very poorly, but if my opponent is not answering my arguments and not responding to them, not making warranted claims, then they're going to lose the debate regardless of how stupid my arguments are. That's an actual competition debate. In real conversations, we hope to make intellectual progress, not just determine a winner or a loser. What do you mean more grounded? More often grounded? I always thought INTPs are more of the grounded ones in general. Sinjin, in terms of your negative qualities, would you say that you are more self-righteous or combative? 468 is truth teller. Well, FI stepdad hardly told me he loved me, but he showed it. On the other hand, my mother couldn't stop saying it every 5 minutes, though. Yeah, and you thought you didn't really, at a certain point, you become very like, okay, mom, enough. But really, you did need that. And it did you a lot of good, I think. What's it like to deal with confrontation, Spacey?
It's like confrontation is like anything, like a doctor's appointment, for example. you know, before it happens or whatever, you might be a little anxious or like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be there on time or whatever. But like once the conflict starts, sometimes it can be really satisfying because I'm always hesitant to get engaged in that kind of stuff. But I do like opportunities to like bleed out my anger or, you know, say my piece when I've been holding my tongue for too long. So when someone finally pushes me into a conflict, I can just,
Well, you've got it all saved up.
yeah.
um, okay, Eric, you say you have basis for your conclusion, but you fail to demonstrate how. I can link you to a playlist called Exciting Tables and Words About Human Personality, in which I explain my bases for these things and the specifics of my entire understanding of them. And then you can critique actual things I say if you'd like. Would you like me to link to that for you, Jim Beam? I think your anger comes from more from four than eight, not being heard and respected and all that. I think that's probably true. Mom's ESFJ, dad's ISTJ. Okay, well, your ISTJ dad is not going to be very FE. I was thinking ESFJ and ISFJ, so that's a little different. My bad. Mike Thompson says, just like Jim Beam lost the debate, Turner claims no backing. Child loss is the worst thing that could happen. Eric says his wife is a 6, which shows he knows nothing. She's obvious 8 with basic fear, textbook fear of vulnerability. Well, actually, Jim Beam, what I've said before is that I think she's either 684 or 846 or 486. That's what I've said. But you're not interested in actually responding to things I say. So you might be right about that. And even if you are right about that, that does not show I know nothing. And I don't ever claim, never have claimed to be an expert on Enneagram. If you ask me questions about Enneagram, I'll give you an answer, but I'll say, you know, I'm no expert on it, and somebody else might know better about Enneagram. Now, if you were a decent human being and even reasonably intelligent, you'd engage me as a human being and actually respond to what I'm saying and, you know, make points that have some sort of chance of going anywhere. Instead, you're just embarrassing yourself. Who are your top 5 favorite rappers? Well, I'd have to say Kendrick Lamar, Eminem, like
Biggie Smalls.
I don't know.
Or you like Tupac better?
I don't like Tupac.
Good.
But I don't know. I have to think about it more. There's some various rappers I like, but I don't really have a list of favorites or anything. Zaylen's back. The problem is that the suppressed anger can come out in awful undestructive ways. Suppressed anger is definitely a problem if you don't feel like you're being heard and you're having to keep things inside and you're not having a chance to voice your legitimate complaints, then it will erupt, regardless of your type. ISTJ will only be FE-ish only if they're forced into it. Do you have fun plans for today? I don't have any fun. I have some tasks I need to do. In fact, I need to get off this thing pretty quick here. Stacey, do you ever initiate conflict yourself or is it dependent on the other person?
Usually it's dependent on the other person.
Thank you, Stacey.
If I initiate conflict, it's usually like kind of for fun. Like I'm not 100% serious.
Hey, look, everybody. Jim Beam's making more unwarranted claims. I am an expert on Enneagram, he says.
Jim Beam, you're not an expert. You're a fucking dumbass.
You are kind of a dumbass, Jim Beam.
It's okay, though.
Who do dots at the end of their sentences are smartasses? Martial arts has got you there, Jim Beam. You punctuated your sentence. That makes you a smartass. Burn. Okay. No, I believe INTP. I read about all types I mentioned. This is very quick for me. It's still a question, of course. Of course. My desktop wallpaper is in school with a pic with Yoda and Hulk looking at each other. ISTJs are a little better at FE than INTJs. I tend to agree with that. A subliminal message for unruly students. I'm not embarrassed, and I believe I am 100% right. I believe you believe you're 100% right. You probably aren't embarrassed yet. You might not ever get embarrassed, but if you rewatch this, you might get embarrassed, depending on the capacity you have for embarrassment. I'm saying you're embarrassing yourself in the colloquial sense, meaning you're behaving in a way that's not working towards the outcome you want. And so in that regard, It's not playing like you want it to play. Eric, have you listened to MF Doom? No, I have not. Martial arts, I may disagree because I tend to do that. I type a bit like I speak. I simply think and type, but I know better than to use capitals. Eminem has FI. Look how brute he is. I do not believe Eminem has FI. I believe Eminem is an ENTP. His reaction to FI shit is so obviously polar. Have you ever heard of the rapper called Snow, Eric? He's a white rapper, but better than Vanilla Ice. I have not heard of him. Is your mother an ISFJ? And do you think some people gravitate toward their parents' type when looking for a partner? My mother is an ISFJ. I gravitate towards ISFJ because it's my dual, though not because she was my mother. I think it made it extra important for me to get with a dual because I knew how good it could be to have a dual as an intimate in your life. When you're a little kid, your intimate is your mother, My mother was an excellent mother and loved the shit out of me and always cared for me and was always fair with me and all that kind of shit. And valued what I provided a lot. Told me how funny and smart and whatever I was all the time. And Gambino, I'm old school. I like Snoop. I like Snoop too. I really like Childish Gambino. I do too. I listen to Charlamagne.
3 hours? My
we're
God.
gonna wrap it up very soon. Very soon. I think when people use subjective, when it comes to functions, it just really means suspended by its own ropes. Perhaps I don't know who used those terms. So the thing about subjective or objective is the best way to understand it is: does it address a piece of data that everybody can access independently and draw their own evaluations about, or does it not? If it's SI, FI, TE, or SE, the answer is no. It doesn't involve data that everybody can draw their own conclusions about. And if it's the other one, then they can't.
Uncle.
Okay, I'll check him out, Hambone. Eminem is a washed-up has-been rapper. Well, the nice thing about music, Jim Beam, is that we get to continue to enjoy music that was made a long time ago on its merits. And things that were truly great when they were made stand the test of time, and things that weren't don't. Eminem's great old music stands the test of time. And while he may not be currently making cutting-edge shit, and I agree with you, he's not, and that his time has passed, that
Eric
doesn't
can
invalidate.
Still listen to his music today and get just as much enjoyment as he did then.
Right. It doesn't invalidate the greatness of what he did when he did it. And since the list is greatest rappers, then obviously we have to include things that are past, not just things that are present. So this is another example, Jim Beam, of why it's great that you're here today, because you're helping to learn how to think better. Since the question was favorite rappers or greatest rappers, we have to include rappers that no longer produce, dead rappers even, right? So this is one of the things you need to start doing if you want to intellectually engage properly with somebody. All right. Moms have quick hide the alcohol, the weed, the porn, and the broken base. Jim Beam, that is the first time someone said that to me. ISTJ aren't better at FE than INTJ. They just use SI to make you comfortable, which allows them to not attend to FE. Okay, I'll buy that. Functionally, from the recipient's perspective, it's better FE from the ISTJ. Jim Beam is more of a glass of water. A little bit. Would an ENTP with an INFP parent be more X conscious and rein in their shit? Probably. I mean, no, I don't think they'd rein in their NE more. I think they'd rein in their TI more. I think Becky is an example of an ENTP who's reined in her TI more in order to do better FE towards FI. FI isn't wholly subjective, though. There are components of the FI user system that can be applied to everyone. Well, and to the extent that, look, there are universal truths that we can express in NI language ways about compassion and a sort of ontological rejection of suffering in front of you, for example. That is, in fact, universal, but nevertheless is experienced by each person in their own way and is subjective. It can't be used to win any arguments, really. It's the basic intuitive sense of what we have as decent and not decent that we refer to, perhaps, but it is not in itself an argument for anything. Yeah, but that's using a specific definition. I'm wondering about which definition makes sense. Otherwise, someone wouldn't be using it, I think. I don't know what you're talking about exactly. A glass of Jim Beam is never half full. My theory was that ISTJs would be better at FE since they learn from past experiences in their past mistakes. Yeah, I mean that's quite. They're going to be more hesitant and careful and worried about getting stung, perhaps, than the NI user because they're dealing with shit as an experiential remnant rather than a takeaway lesson. Opinions can be wrong. Nothing is truly subjective. That's because you're not understanding subjectivity and objectivity as a way of approaching data. You're thinking of it as something else. So it's like data, an object can be referred to as objective. And that's, in that sense, the data is referred to as objective if everybody can access it, okay, and critique it independently. Data that's subjective is like my feelings. If I say, I feel sad right now, you can't really win that argument because only I have access to that data. So it's good data. Now, on the other hand, if I'm making claims and saying it is objectively so that this claim is true, well, that is going to be argumentationally determined. So it will be objectively so based upon how the argument plays out. Based on all the arguments made in the status quo on the flow right now, we can conclude this is the objectively best conclusion to hold conditionally. We're not holding it forever. We're not saying that because something's objectively true, it's true forever. We're saying, given the context of the arguments on the flow currently, the reasons being provided by the other party or third parties or whatever, and the arguments that we are evaluating in front of us, this is objectively the best conclusion to draw. That is an objective matter because rhetorical slope is an objective matter. Some arguments are simply harder to make in the same way that some hills are harder to climb because they have a steeper slope. Great art is always great. If it isn't great now, then it's never been. Right. Exactly. And the vast, vast, vast majority of art people make never fails, never gets there, never gets to become greater genius or whatever. And that's true for me too. That's just part of the struggle of life. You know, if it were easy, it wouldn't be worth anything. I think they learn to dodge FE problems before they happen, but if they happen, they are as lost as INTJ are. I agree with that. I have read that ISTJs are walking encyclopedias. They're present in the military and police, guardian warriors. Yeah, I dealt with an ISTJ the other morning who was a smog check guy, and he knew everything in the world about emissions and emissions laws. Yeah, I guess that's true. My BF plays to my squishy love for SI, and it never feels like FE. It never feels like FE, but it is comfy, I guess. And the church. Crusaders who are conservative in nature, distrustful of risk, inherently faithful, loyal. That's not me at all, Winston's mom. Are you an INFP? Every Enneagram type can alter any MBTI type. Many people of the same type will be distinctly different because of the different Enneagram. Okay, you have one warrant. This is the first time you said a warrant. Many people of the same type will be distinctly different because of the different Enneagram. Nobody's disputing that. ENTPs who are type 7, 8, 4, like me, are going to be different in display than an ENTP who's 9, 6, 2, or whatever. But the thing is, they'll be different in how in the flavoring of their attentional matter. Their attentional reflexes will still be the same. So in other words, TI might be applied in different spots, might be applied towards different things, but it's still going to be a tool function. And it's going to be used for everything. It might come out in different kind of display, more or less emotional, for example, but it'll still fundamentally be saying, the words will be saying TI style parsing on a consistency basis. And that won't change. And that's a lot easier to determine than Enneagram because it's concrete. The data is objective. We can reduce some of those functions, at least, to skills and test those directly. And, you know, if you've done a lot of good thinking about the matter, like I have, you understand things. If you've not done any good thinking and you just want to come in adversarial and try to assert dominance where you have absolutely no business even asserting competency, frankly, then be Jim Beam. You are the ethereal Tinkerbell fairy, and we clap because we believe in you. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up here. So, FE Polar is ridiculous. I heard this story of the INTJ who, in response to somebody offering him comfort and platitudes over a tough situation, gave the person a really cold look and said, "Does that really make you feel any better?" Something like that. This thing's going too fast here. You see the functions handling information elements? No, it doesn't. That's wrong, socionics. An attentional manner is a way of constructing information elements out of the raw material of reality. it both creates and treats as information elements. It depends on the function. They serve different purposes. Look, there's three kinds of directions information goes: putting information, getting information, and dealing with information you already have. Okay? Action functions, deliberation functions, and knowing functions. Then there's a fourth kind of attention that required when you're dealing with dynamic systems that require you to interface. You can't have decided ahead of time exactly what you're going to do very much because the system's too dynamic. In that instance, you use one of the interface functionalities, TE or FE. So it's like the reason why we understand cognitive functions the way we do is because we already have lots of proof that it's like this. The internet is an example of a metaphysical ecosystem that human beings have created to echo the metaphysical ecosystems that each of us have in our heads and that we have in libraries and stuff like that, right? So the point is, in this metaphysical ecosystem, information is put, gotten, and received just as it is in human existence, just as it is with any agent, because you're talking about the dynamics of an agent moving through fields and the capacity to reframe. In other words, an open system of agents moving through fields in dynamic systems. How else are you going to model it? There's no other way to model it. So to say that somehow the cognitive functions don't make any sense, they just made up bullshit or whatever, that is just, I mean, I guess that's just, some people are born with just very little interest or capacity, or just have developed so much defensiveness they don't want to engage with ideas, or aren't capable of engaging in them, or just hate me so much they want to attack for no reason, or whatever. All that kind of shit. That's fine. So I gotta go. That's gonna be about it for today. It's been over 3 hours. Kimberly's getting impatient with me. We do have some tasks to do. I put them on the schedule. I need to get them done before my mom gets here. I'm taking care of my mom from 4 p.m. tonight till 4 p.m. tomorrow. It's gonna be quite a bit of caregiving. So don't forget to rock and roll, rock on, and just remember to please eat plenty of cheese. The end.